Rights Commission, we are not a punitive organization. What we look forward to is restoring the dignity of those whose dignity have been violated, and also towards restorative justice. Transformative process, certainly so, but we are an institution that supports democracy, and we have to align ourselves with what our mandating legislation also calls for, and that includes ADR.
So let's talk about this restorative justice. I mean, how in this position here, the apology, the very public apology, and the commitment now to effectively go for some form of counselling of sorts, how would that serve this purpose of restorative justice to the people? Because it's not targeted to one person, but an entire nation in many ways, right?
Yeah, Ashraf, I think we look at what does the Promotion of Equality and Prevention of Unfair Discrimination, Section 21, provide for? What does the court, what would the court have said if we were to ask for similar relief? And that is what we reflected on then. We looked to the prayers, what were in our prayers when we did approach the court, and the outcome of the ADR process is very much aligned to what we would have received in court. And we do feel, having this discussion with, it was an intense discussion, a full day discussion with Mr. Gous and his team, as well as the Human Rights Commission's legal representatives, myself, Professor Madling was involved. It was a very intense process that we went through in order to find each other, in order to ventilate concerns of parties, both sides of the table. And then the restorative justice element is really something that one needs to explore in terms of the authenticity of the apology that Mr. Gous then committed himself to. And members of the public would be open to their own opinion about it. But we really feel that this journey is a positive one, and we are certainly satisfied with the outcome.
And I take it that the words actually used, I know Ronaldo Gous, in fact, there's the text form. He's also put out a video on social media. We'll actually play that later on too, right? But I mean, I would take it that the very words that we used had to be negotiated and agreed upon, right?
So you would have seen in the apology, Mr. Gous is unconditional about apologizing for the hurt that was caused by the words. And we don't need to delve very deep into jurisprudence to know that those words have been determined by the Constitutional Court and by our jurisprudence to, the Constitutional Court says it's unutterable. You're not allowed to say those words. So whichever the context is that one would use to justify that was the discussions that were around the table, and the settlement reflects Mr. Gous' unconditional apology, and that those words are in fact unutterable.
And I mean, moving beyond this, I mean, one of the big issues to consider is the issue of nation building and reconciliation. And I know Ronaldo Gous' comments even today very critical of John Steenhuisen, unrelated to this conversation, right? But I mean, people have sides, they have views about where we're going with South Africa's transformation project. What you do want to do is understand that people understand the importance of reconciling as a nation, right? To what degree will this help building blocks to ensure that Ronaldo Gous himself is reconciled to a bigger project, but then others who may have thought like him would do the same?
Well, I think, Ashraf, that number one, Mr. Gous was really amenable to the process and to our suggestions in terms of coming on board with the Commission to show him what, in fact, the Commission's work entails. And that is for us a step in the right direction. And surely Mr. Gous has his following, and we really encourage all of those followers to also come along on the journey. Social cohesion, Ashraf, is extremely important to our country and to our nation building. And we are encouraged by what we have seen, the messages of support, and by also the previous discussions we've had with other respondents in similar hate speech and harassment matters. So whether it's a successful journey is to be seen, but surely it's a step in the right direction, and a step that each one of us as individuals in this country also owes to this country that we can take.
Understandably, and I know this is sadly, off at a tangent, but it's just so topical. As we talk to you, there's been South Africans who've now taken the refugee status to the USA. South Africa's president will be visiting Trump next week, right? And linked to all of that, without getting into the detail, are perceptions from people and communities that they are being prejudiced, right? So going back again to your broader issue of the South African Human Rights Commission and the issue of nation building and reconciliation and social cohesion. I mean, what for you is the big advice you could give in terms of how do we get that right on a daily basis so we truly grow as a people and as a nation?
So, Ashraf, we did have a launch of what we call the SHINE initiative, where it's a social cohesion initiative, where we really need to have the difficult discussions with each other, understand where we are coming from as a very, very diverse nation. But in respect of the refugee matter, Ashraf, we will be releasing a statement on that as well. But it is certainly something that we are calling South Africans, let us move closer to each other. And we have these difficult discussions, and we try and find each other in this amazingly diverse country of ours, because certainly it's worth building towards.
Okay, and hopefully you'll get that statement out on the refugee issue ASAP. Much appreciate your time, Dr. Eileen Carter. Lots to consider coming out of that conversation. And thank you for your time. This is the National Pulse. What do you make of that conversation and this agreement, this mediated agreement here between the South African Human Rights Commission on the one hand and Ronaldo Goosen? He's come out with this public apology of utterances he made a long, long time ago. But here we are. South Africa, like it or not, is a democracy, and by and large, we are a working democracy. This is just one example of many like it. Welcome to the National Pulse.
We're extending the sunshine on Mzansi's favorite adventure SUV with Ford Blue Sky offers. For just $849,999, a new Everest XLT could be yours. Glide through the burbs or power through nature's toughest with a 3.5-ton brake towing capacity. You'll even get 4x4 driver training through Ford Family Promise for free. Head to a Ford dealer and get your new Everest XLT for just $849,999. T&Cs apply.
As a business owner, I've noticed how being energy efficient has improved my savings and the growth of my business. You too can improve your margins by adopting energy efficient behaviors. Simply switch to energy saving lighting, switch off non-essential equipment, and maintain HVAC systems. These are some of the ways you can use electricity wisely to see your business soar, as well as contribute to a greener planet. Just like every rand counts, every kilowatt counts. Let's use electricity wisely. Eskom.
The Blue Diamonds are craving for 3 points, but Amatax believe in their football intelligence to triumph. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. It's more than just 90 minutes. Catch the joy of Mzansi's women's football. JVW Ladies FC versus the University of Pretoria Ladies FC. The Saturday 17 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
South Africans don't like to talk about Say what? Mara, FYI, our financial confidence is... and our financial anxiety, it's an F show.
Or is it? See, just talking about our finances can build confidence and make us better at managing them.
This is exciting. Welcome to your Fintervention, Mzansi.
It's our way to get you talking, laughing, and learning about.
Start now at livewithconfidence.co.za. Sanlam. Live with confidence. Sanlam Life is a licensed life insurer, financial services, and registered credit provider.
Do you want an experience of a lifetime? Where every day is filled with challenges of providing Lisa Vanderpump curated experiences while dealing with rivalries, romances, and misadventures. It's drama at Vanderpump's French Estate. Chantel Rosabelle and the staff can't wait to give you a front row seat to all the drama. Catch Vanderpump Villa, Saturdays on S3 at 8:30 p.m. S3 open up. S3.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
You know, every Friday we have this fireside chat, and today we chat to the founder of Operation Watershed Civil Society. Looking forward to that conversation coming up from 5 to 6. In the meantime, to the UK we go, really, for context. Members of Parliament in the United Kingdom are debating a bill that is aimed at legalising assisted dying in England and Wales, right? Now, supporters of the bill argue that allowing people to die with dignity is kinder than forcing them to continue their lives with suffering. Clearly, there are different views on this one. Those who are opposed to the bill are of the view that opening the doors to voluntary euthanasia and assisted suicide could lead to non-voluntary and involuntary euthanasia by giving doctors themselves the power to decide, who lives and who doesn't, right? Let's get the thoughts of Professor Willem Landman, who's the Executive Chairman of Dignity SA. Prof. Landman, appreciate your time and thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
That's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, one of the reasons we're talking to you is you're not in the UK, but you, from a Dignity SA point of view, you have a specific interest in the debate and the outcomes of that case. Give me some context in terms of where you stand on this.
Yes, we support that. We're encouraged by that. There have been several changes in many countries especially over the past 5 years. With New Zealand, Australia, Latin America, Canada, and Scotland. In fact, legalized in the first reading of the bill 2-3 days ago. Legalized assisted dying, and now in the UK, and we believe that the argument for legalizing and decriminalizing assisted dying, the arguments are much stronger than the opposing ones. Maybe I should quickly say that what we are talking about assisted dying is when we have medically assisted dying. In other words, a doctor assists always in all cases, but there are two possibilities in that the administration of the means is either by the doctor, in which case we used to call it euthanasia, or by the patient himself or herself, which we used to call suicide. But we try because of the baggage of those terms, we try to minimize using those terms.
Okay, and you're saying that from a South African, I suppose the same with the UK, you're saying that this assisted dying would happen in consultation with the medical doctor. I mean, who makes the recommendation? Is it the doctor or is it actually the patient then?
It's actually a very crucial question. Assisted dying is always a voluntary choice. It always has to, the request has to come from the patient. It should not be prompted. It should be a voluntary request from the patient. In other words, when there is an overriding of the patient's will, when anything is done to a patient against the patient's will, that could not be assisted dying. The patient must request it.
Okay, so what is the position in South Africa right now?
The common law says that both forms, as I've explained them, doctor-administered assisted dying or patient-administered assisted dying, are crimes in our common law. But the problem is that the 1996 Constitution in South Africa enshrines certain rights that we have that contradict the common law on this point of assisted dying. For example, rights to respect for autonomy, rights to bodily autonomy. There's several rights that in the Constitution one could arguably say support assisted dying, the legalization and the decriminalization of assisted dying.
Okay, and therefore, I mean, you'd be looking at the position in the UK with great interest because of the potential, maybe ripple effect in terms of how people may view it from a moral stance versus the Constitution, isn't it? In South Africa, that is.
Yeah, I mean, this debate is taking place in many, as I've said, in many societies, and the kinds of debates that are raging there, for example, that it could be abused, that there's inequality in the healthcare system, are enormously important. In other words, that people should not feel pressured because they do not have the means to have proper palliative care, and therefore they opt for assisted dying, where otherwise, if they had the means, they would not have opted for it if they had proper palliative care. So those debates are very important. They can inform our debates, but they are universal debates, and we are familiar with the arguments. But it's just interesting to see how they play out in a different society.
So again, in South Africa, at this point in time, in terms of the law, nobody has the right to take away their own life or to request others to do the same, right?
Well, the interesting thing is that suicide used to be a crime. You could survive a suicide attempt and then you could be charged for trying to kill yourself. That's no longer the case. It has been decriminalized. But the problem is that assisting somebody with suicide, we're talking now about medical suicide where somebody is terminally ill, that is a crime. That is a crime in terms of our common law. But we believe that the common law there clashes with what we are allowed to do in terms of the Constitution.
So what do you feel about it from a very personal point of view? One is the law and the crime in terms of how it's been designated, but what do you feel about it? And maybe help us understand that point about the decision that human beings make about the right to live or the right to die. Keeping in mind, of course, we know that as we talk to you, there are people with different religious and moral backgrounds, and they interpret this very, very differently.
I think that's very important. You know, the Constitution allows us to choose options that not everybody agrees with or may agree with, as long as we don't harm others. That's why some would choose certain kinds of, same-sex unions. That some others would not choose for themselves, or why some would have abortion or termination of pregnancy that others would not choose for themselves because they disagree with them on a personal basis, or for religious reasons or ethical reasons. But the Constitution says that we are allowed to have these differences. That's exactly the role of the Constitution, to make us cohabit, in spite of our differences. And we believe that somebody who is in terminal suffering, some people are unfortunate enough to die under dire circumstances, where modern medicine has brought them to a point where they otherwise would have been dead. Now dying is becoming more difficult in those circumstances because we live longer than we would naturally have lived without modern medicine. So we think we cannot abandon patients. So for the reasons of compassion, humanity, and on the other side, rights claims, we believe that people who want to choose this for themselves should be able to do so.
Okay. Just lastly, in terms of the plan for Dignity SA, I mean, you have plans. I understand you're lobbying for the position to get South Africa to rethink its position. So what is the plan going forward?
Yeah, it's a long process. I think major social changes take a long time. The rights, of women, of slaves and so on took a long time. And I see this as analogous to that. It's not something that will happen overnight. But we believe that the time is right, that the South African Constitution allows us that many practices have been decriminalized, since the adoption of the democratic constitution. And we believe that the time has come. So we have been through a process of almost 3 years of preparing court papers. And without revealing too much, and, we plan to approach the High Court within the next 3 to 4 months. But it's a long run up because, if you prepare for a court case, you have to do it thoroughly. And we're in that process, but we are determined to take this to court.
And this show being the National Pulse, we will certainly get a sense of your pulse and the people that support or oppose you all throughout this year. I'm sure of that. Professor Willem Landman, appreciate your time. Executive Chairman of Dignity SA. You're live on the National
That's a pleasure.
Thank you.
That's a pleasure.
Let's get the news headlines. It's 3:30 years on Della.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, President Cyril Ramaphosa has filed papers in the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria, seeking leave to appeal the full court judgment of the said court, which found that his decision to sign the National Health Insurance Act is reviewable, and subsequently gave him 10 days to furnish the record of the decision. ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa says the failure to pass the 2025 national budget is a dark cloud that still hangs over the Republic, and the Civil Defense Agency in Gaza says the Israeli military has killed about 100 people in the last 12 hours in another intense wave of strikes in the north of the territory. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Germiston queuing towards Geldenhuys interchange. The N1 northbound in Midrand has a stationary vehicle before New Road, and the M1 northbound in Woodmead queuing towards Woodmead Drive. In KZN, the N3 eastbound queuing at Key Ridge, the N3 westbound in Pietermaritzburg queuing towards Chatterton Road due to a truck crash on the eastbound carriageway. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound is queuing towards Spine Road exit, the N1 outbound queuing approaching Okavongo Road, and Hilberson Drive is where truck fire incidents reported near the N1 highway, so expect delays. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkgapele.
Tell you what, all I can tell you is in the lead up to me delivering sport now, she's been taking pictures this way, that way, selfies, and I've been doing it as well. And she can tell you why.
Yeah, because today I'm wearing a national team jersey, to be specific, football. I'm not wearing the right one because I don't know where I misplaced my yellow one. However, I'm wearing my green Bafana Bafana jersey, and this is in honor of Amajita and all the hard work that they've put in to make sure that they make it into the final of the under-20 AFCON, and a big congratulations to them. I'm going to post that picture.
And they did it last night, right?
Yes, they did it last night. So let's just support them. Talking about the national team, Captain Refilwe Jane is back in the Banyana Banyana squad. This is after Coach Desiree Ellis named her as part of the 24-player squad named for the upcoming international window against Zambia and Botswana. Jessica Williams of University of Cape Town is a fresh face among the goalkeepers, while Karabo Dlamini and Bambanani Mbani returns in defense following recent injury layoffs. Banyana are preparing for the Women's Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco, which starts from the 5th to the 26th of July. Meanwhile, Amajita defender Talon Smith says that reaching the final of the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations means a lot to this generations of player. Raymond Daga's side became the first generation to reach the AFCON final in 28 years after a 1-0 win over Nigeria yesterday.
It means a lot for us because we went through a lot. We had a lot of training camps, but I think personally, this means a lot for us because it's playing in the World Cup. Not everyone can achieve what we achieved, but I feel like it means a lot to the boys.
In women's football, University of Western Cape coach Tina Songembuli says that they're expecting a tight contest against the University of Johannesburg ladies in their Hollywood Bet Super League clash tomorrow. UWC come into this fixture off the back of a very slow start to this campaign, with only 2 wins in 7 outings, leaving them in 10th place on the log with just 8 points.
And our games against UK, they're always very close. So we have to prepare very well against them. So we have our last session today. We did our analysis, so we know their strength, which is the players up front. They are very quick. I think currently Umibe is doing very well for them. So what's common to us with them, I think they didn't start well, just like us. Yes, Bona, they still have the same team. But in terms of results, they drew, lost, won, lost, drew. So they're still maybe Nabo, still finding their feet. So maybe it's a perfect time to play against them. But we expect a tough match.
Elsewhere, Kevin De Bruyne can add another honour to his haul as Manchester City's most decorated player of all time, with a fitting farewell in tomorrow's FA Cup final against Crystal Palace. De Bruyne will come to an end at the De Bruyne's contract will come to an end at the conclusion of the Premier Soccer League season with City. He could add a 3rd FA Cup to his 5 League Cups and 2023 Champions League win with Manchester City. In cricket, Australian fast bowler Mitchell Starc will not return to the disrupted Indian Premier League, while England's former white ball captain Jos Buttler will leave before the playoffs. IPL was suspended last week because of a brief but deadly conflict between nuclear-armed neighbours India and Pakistan. The competition will resume tomorrow, but faces losing several top stars for the closing stages because of clashes with the schedules of international teams, including Australia, England, and South Africa. In the meantime, England Test captain Ben Stokes hopes that he can become a dominant force with both bat and ball again when the all-rounder returns from hamstring surgery. With a busy season ahead that includes high-profile series against India and Australia. Then in the rugby front, Eben Etzebeth has been passed fit for the Sharks' Vodacom URC match against the Scarlets at Kings Park tomorrow, while he limped off the field during last week's 29-10 win against the Ospreys, but has recovered quickly from what turned out to be a leg knock rather than a knee injury to retain his place in the starting 15 as well as the captaincy. Finally, in golf, Ryder Cup captain Luke Donald got within 3 shots of the early lead at the PGA Championship as Rory McIlroy made an error-filled start to his bid for the back-to-back major titles. Donald carded a bogey-free 67 27, his best start to a major since 2004, to stay in touch with the early lead, Jonathan Vegas, who charged ahead with 5 birdies in his final 6 holes. And before I say goodbye, Ashraf, I've been seeing this debate on X now, talking about the Springboks tickets that have gone on sale.
Okay.
And a lot of people complaining about how expensive they are. So they range from 250 to, I think it goes up to like 15,000 rand. This is me just talking about VIP
For one person or for a whole family?
For one person.
Okay, just checking.
And I think one is like against the Barbarians, and there's going to be a match down at the DHL Stadium. And the handful of the 250 rand tickets, they're already sold out by the time the public was open to buying tickets. So now I think you can get tickets from like 1,250 and it goes up to 15,000 if you want to.
Luckily, we've got connections with Tumi, so you can sort it out. I mean, on that same point, Joseph Bertrand tweeted as Joe Bertrand 19. Check him out. He said, Springboks versus Italy, stand tickets range from 1,250 to 3,000 rands, right? While the Nedbank Cup final between the two giants, Chiefs and Pirates, cost 150 rand. This isn't just about sports. It's a stark reflection of South Africa's persistent racial and economic divides. Rugby, predominantly followed by white fans, remains a luxury many can't afford, while football, the heartbeat of black communities, is at that price point. It is disheartening that even our shared love for sports is fractured by privilege and access, yet there's hope. We must keep pushing for a South Africa where every fan, no matter their background, can cheer from the stands without breaking the bank. And he's got a South African flag next to it.
Listen, from my understanding, apparently there's a high demand for the Springboks. But I think for me, especially for South Africans, they need to make it affordable. Surely.
Well, the point is, if there's a demand, then they're going to raise the price, which allows them to pay everybody else.
No.
Yeah, I'm not saying I agree. I'm saying it's supply and demand.
I guess.
Yeah. Nobody's going to drop.
So you've heard OUTsurance clients talking about all the money they saved when they switched. You've thought about getting a quote, but you're not sure if they could save you money on your car insurance or if it's worth the effort. Well, make today the day you get an OUTsurance quote. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. If OUTsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. Either way, you're a winner, like Tulani.
Fast, helpful, efficient, everything was so smooth. I saved 530 bucks.
Make today the day you switch and save. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With OUTsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matriek mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucket to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
Reigning champions Bafana Style are in a jubilant mood closer to the end of the season. They are enjoying every moment on the summit, but Magesi FC have an agenda to cause an upset. This is the Betway Premiership. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game, Mamelodi Sundowns FC versus Magesi FC on Sunday 18 May, streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC 1 at 4:30 p.m. Also available on SABC radio stations at 5:30 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
We all have dreams. Some people dream to be astronauts, while others want to yell, Vimba, as they chase that elusive shoplifter sprinting out and into Diamond Walk. Others might look at a broomstick and think to themselves that witchcraft might be the way to go. The possibilities are endless. But for Hollywood stars Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, their dreams is to make it big in the English football leagues. Tune into Welcome to Wrexham as the duo aim to turn Wrexham AFC into an underdog story that the world can root for, bringing hope and change to the community. Welcome to Wrexham, Saturdays at 3 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
I'm going to read a tweet from Lewis Pugh just now. Not quite now, just now. It's a really interesting one. But let's talk about winners. We often want to focus on some of the big winners in various sectors of South African society as much as we can, right? And today we talked to Zahir Kassem, who's the owner of the Polar Ice Cream business in Norwood. Zahir, appreciate your time and thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So we talked to you. I understand that hopefully that noise in the background can sort of simmer down. We talked to you at a time where I think, in terms of your involvement with Polar Ice Cream has been quite impactful in terms of the global or national recognition that Polar Ice Cream has received. Tell me more about it.
Well, I mean, it's really Polar, the group. They've done it phenomenally well. I mean, they scooped up 5 awards, over 5 awards at the SA Dairy Champs. And we've managed to open up our store now in Norwood. And sorry, the ruckus at the back is all the folks running in, grabbing ice creams, having fun. So it's chaotic, but it's fun. It's fun chaos.
Okay, tell me then more about the Polar Ice Cream, because I mean you've got a franchise, right? I understand, but the actual group was started when, and that's received the recognition, and will then come back to what you're doing with it now.
So the group was started in 1990, so it's been around for about three decades now. And the group has been, the ice cream has been growing, and I think there's been an ethos to try and get in an ice cream for every single person, and that's what's led to the success of the Polar brand. I mean, whether it's 5 Rand or whether it's 95 Rand, there's an ice cream for everyone, and everybody just seems to be enjoying it.
Yeah. Now, again, and I know you said the group receive some awards or titles. I mean, tell me more about it, because you would know it has an impact on your brand too, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the signature range, the Madagascar vanilla, salted caramel, and the praline and cream have done phenomenally well. And then another big winner was the kisses and cannolis. Personally, I love the salted caramel. I've always been a salted caramel guy. And there's an ice cream there for everybody. And it's, I don't want to mention the competitors, but there's some pretty big names out there that we've taken down. And I'm proud to be a part of the Polar family.
Okay, you're not mentioning the competitors, but clearly our job is to do that. I mean, you're in a very competitive market, both the overall Polar group and then certainly your new store in Norwood. How do you ensure that you remain relevant and being able to deliver to a clientele that obviously demands best quality at the lowest possible prices?
So I think what's really setting us apart is our individual stores in different communities, run by other franchisees like myself. They're connected to the people on the ground. They're talking to the people on the ground, and if you're there and you're talking to the people, and we've got a lovely product, people are already coming to us. You kind of understand what's going on and what's happening and what the people want. So for us it's about just listening to our customers and delivering.
How about now? You've opened this new store. It's one thing, you've got the group brand, but then the ethos of the brand has to filter down to you, and then you need to put your stamp on it at branch level, right? How do you do that?
Well, we do that by firstly, Polar itself has a lot of training for all franchisees. There's a lot of hand holding, and during that hand hold phase, you get to understand what the business is about. And Ashraf Mohammed, or otherwise known as Ashraf Polar, the guy who started all of this, he's been instrumental in talking to me and working with me and taking me around and just explaining to me why this brand is so important and why it's a brand for everybody. And no matter who you are, when you walk into the store, we got to make you feel part of our family. So it's really from the top down, and then that filters into my leadership with my team, and I try and do the same in Norwood. Yeah.
Okay, and your store is in Norwood in Johannesburg, right? Tell me more about it in terms of how you market to effectively a new customer because they were buying elsewhere before, right? How do you get that right? To market to them and get them to come into the store?
So today is actually the launch of our store in Norwood, and what we've been doing is we've been going to the schools. We're very luckily have like 5 or 6 schools in the community, and we've been going out there, giving out free ice creams, talking to the kids, talking to the parents. Aside from that, we've also just been around Norwood, talking to our neighbors. We've got a lovely wall with chalk where kids can come in, have fun, draw, write, and we're giving away free ice creams as well. So it's literally just trying to bring that old school community feel back into every community wherever you are, and just trying to be that ice cream parlor for your people.
I understand. I mean, interesting you use the word community because one of the things of a solid franchise is the franchise owner, in this case, is identifiable within that community. I understand that you do a lot of work within your community that sets you apart as someone who's a leader or pioneer in that community. Tell me about that and how then that also circles back again to your presence within this ice cream store.
Well, I mean, it just comes down to being a good human being and being kind to all. I think all of us have a responsibility of taking ownership of our communities, and it's pretty dark time in the world, and to open up our ice cream shop and bring a little bit of joy into the world, trust me, I couldn't have think of something better. And so I think that's what we all have to do. We have to kind of try and find that joy in our communities and give back as much as we can. And grow together.
And just lastly, for you, as you start day one of the franchise, there must be certain qualities that you must bring in that you need to embrace. What do you think is the one thing, just one thing that will get you ahead?
Joy. If I'm having fun, everybody else will have fun. And I think that's the most important thing. I mean, it filters down to the team. If you wear a smile on your face, your team is going to wear a smile. And if they're happy and you're happy, your customers are going to be happy, and it's just going to work.
Well, one day I'll be tempted to see whether Polar Ice Cream Norwood brings me joy. Not quite today. I've got a sore throat, and people who are broadcasters, we look after our voices and throats no matter what. So that comes before the ice cream. Zahir Kassam, much appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to us here on the National Pulse. And that's an interesting thing in terms of projecting people who are best in class, winning at what they do. The overall brand, which is interesting, of the whole group, winners of 5 South African champion titles, and the most recent one, the 2025 South African Dairy Championship winners. What a fascinating achievement for something that's at its core, I think, family and entrepreneurial at community level, that it can grow much bigger and start impacting on a national stage, which clearly is what they've just done. Right, you, of course, are impacting me, and when you talk to me and you reflect, what is it that gets your pulses racing? I certainly want to know about it, so let's do that.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The Bees are fairly impressed with their run this season, but they want to win at home to concretize a top half position.
That's a crack. Oh, what a crack. That's Brentford for you. There you go.
Yet the Cottagers want to be remembered for an away win during their penultimate game of the season.
Hey! He's what an introduction! Harry Wilson makes it 2-1 to Fulham. Now go home! Off you go!
This is the Premier League. Witness the mouth-watering clash between Brentford FC and Fulham FC on Sunday 18 May at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Extraordinary doesn't just happen. It's built, brick by digital brick. With every connection, every innovation, every leap forward. A cloud that scales with your vision. Security that earns your trust. AI that empowers smarter decisions. IoT that connects what truly matters. Connectivity that bridges every gap. We're not just building technology, We're building the future of South Africa. Stronger businesses, thriving communities, a nation connected, empowered, and ready to lead. Together, let's build the extraordinary. Start your journey at vodacombusiness.co.za. Vodacom Business. Further together.
We've upgraded. Our new GIS-linked national address database lets us connect with you better than ever before. By visualizing licensed and unlicensed households nationwide, we can ensure timely communication. Our payment reminders are a crucial tool to help you stay compliant and avoid penalties, empowering you to take proactive steps. Efficient electronic communication helps us collect fees seamlessly, bolstering the SABC's mandate in line with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Right, I'll get to your calls in just a moment. Now, interesting, we had the chat with Dr. Eileen Carter from the South African Human Rights Commission, and she referred to the conversation around this mediated agreement now between them and Ronaldo Gous, where he's now issued an apology on all his social media platforms, an apology against racially offensive and harmful language that he directed to black South Africans in 2010. Now, the apology is about 10 minutes. I'll get Busani to tweet it out from the SFM Radio account on Twitter as well as on Facebook. But what we'll do is play 2 minutes of that apology. Here it is.
I would rather ensure that you can see that the apology is sincere. So with that being said, let's get to it. Unconditional public apology by Ronaldo Gous. 15 years ago, on 11 March 2010, while I was a 27-year-old student and not yet a political figure, I recorded and published a video on YouTube in which I intended to comment on then ANC Youth League President Julius Malema's singing of the words, "Kill the boer, kill the farmer." I maintain that singing those words is insensitive, offensive, divisive, and deeply hurtful towards Afrikaners, especially those affected by violent crime in rural areas. However, I acknowledge that my critique itself was insensitive, offensive, divisive, and deeply hurtful towards black people. In that video, I started with the words, and I'm going to highlight it here so that you can see it. I'm not going to repeat it. Although I followed this with the words, I didn't mean what I just said. It was unacceptable for me to have used such violent language to make my point. I accept now that these racial slurs have been correctly declared by the Constitutional Court to be unutterable and racist. Further in the video, I described Julius Malema as an ignorant little effing black idiot and referred to those who sang along with him as effing barbaric people. In the same video, I claimed that some of the policies introduced in democratic South Africa constituted a new apartheid, where there is a racial double standard, and the black people are singing about killing the white people. I maintain my political view that affirmative action and black empowerment are not being implemented in a fair and constructive way in South Africa. However, I now acknowledge that they cannot be equated with apartheid, which was a crime against humanity that stripped black people of any meaningful opportunities in political, economic, social, and cultural spheres of life, and was maintained by, among other measures, the murder, disappearance, and arbitrary detention of political dissidents on the instruction of the state. I acknowledge now that the language I used in the video was unacceptable, degrading to black people, and harmful to social cohesion. I apologize unreservedly to the people of South Africa, both for the racial invective I expressed in the video itself, and for taking so many years to take full responsibility for it.
Okay, that's part of the apology. You can check it out. Well, SFM Radio will tweet it out, so you can certainly follow that full apology of over 10 minutes or so longer. What do you make of that? Any other issues you may want to raise that we've already talked about regarding the Human Rights Commission, the chat with Professor Willem Landman, the issue of brands like the Polar Ice Cream, but there's so many more. The American trip that comes up next week, there's numbers, there's been names now. We've got confirmed as to who's going to be there. We'll talk about all those things. Let's, however, get some of your thoughts. Here we are.
As of Lukman, white racism, white divisive comments must be highlighted, must be flagged, must be condemned to the strongest terms, which hosts have done. He apologized. Where does go must go. But Ashraf, you get black racists as well. You get every day on the show divisive comments. White, black politicians, white. So we must be fair and we must be balanced with how we criticize and how people accountable, both white racist and black racist. Thank you.
Okay, and you certainly have made your point, Lukman. No need to add further to that, isn't it? I think that's the responsibility we all have. True, right?
By savings and the growth of
Hi, Ashraf and the SFM listener. Ashraf, you know, I don't know actually like we people, what we want, what we don't want. We just crying about 49, I don't know, it's 49 only or 49,000 white guys who gone to America. Whereby it shows that we cannot live without those people. We're just afraid of the exodus. That's why we keep on even making some follow-up unto it and then making it like as if, you know, it's a national thing and so on and so on.
I don't think people are crying about 49 people. It's the symbolism around it and how it came about in the first place on the basis of who lobbied the U.S. for the U.S. then to pronounce and describing your country genocidal. That's really what the issue is, isn't it? Not about the one or two individuals or the 49 people in particular.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, the ruling party really has lost it all. It has gone rogue, Ashraf. I've heard from other media platforms that the finance minister maybe will come out next week and cut salaries of public workers and their benefits, even going on reversing the increase on old age grant. Why they don't think of cutting those misused expenditures in parliament, those sauna parties, budget speech parties and dinner parties. Thanks, Ashraf.
Well, thanks. Let's see what comes out. Budget speech 21st, right? Wednesday. There's so many things happening on Wednesday. We'll get further comments just now. By the way, looking forward to the fireside chat after 5 o'clock, and I hope you're going to join us for that. I chat to Heidi Reichert, who's the founder of Operation Watershed. That comes up from 5 to 6. She's done many, many things operating out of the United Kingdom, by the way. Let's see how that circles back to South Africa. But let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. Ramaphosa seeks to appeal court judgment on NHI Act and Israeli airstrikes in Gaza kill 100 people. For SFM News, I am Ondela and a very good afternoon. President Cyril Ramaphosa has filed papers in the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria seeking leave to appeal the full court judgment of the said court, which found that his decision to sign the National Health Insurance Act is reviewable and subsequently gave him 10 days to furnish the record of the decision. That judgment forms of an ongoing battle to review and set aside the President's decision to sign an assent to the NHI Act led by the Board of Healthcare Funders. Kenny Mapanga reports.
The President, in his latest bid, lists numerous grounds for leave to appeal, including that the full court in its decision erred in failing to take into account the breadth of the discretion enjoyed by the President. In doing so, and in further seeking to determine how to exercise his constitutional obligation, the court committed the separation of powers harm. The President not only seeks leave to appeal in the High Court, but also intends to institute an application for leave to appeal directly to the Constitutional Court by the 27th of May, 2025. Kani Mapanga, SABC News, Johannesburg.
ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa says the failure to pass the 2025 national budget is a dark cloud that still hangs over the Republic. The retabling of the 2025 budget is scheduled for next week, Wednesday. Ramaphosa was speaking at the induction of the ANC Provincial Executive Committee members in Kimberley. The 2025 budget was presented by Minister Enoch Godongwana in March after it was first postponed in February. Ramaphosa says leaders should in the future handle such matters better.
We need to look below that cloud and see whether there is a silver lining that can help us to handle these matters better forward. And that silver lining is to enable us as leaders, as South Africans as well,
to immerse ourselves, to get us to delve into understanding our national budget, to get us into fully understanding our provincial budget. That is what I see as a silver lining.
Department of Communications and Digital Technologies Minister Solly Malatsi says their aim is to connect all schools in rural areas to digital technology by 2029. Minister Malatsi was speaking during the handing over of a cyber laboratory to Morutua Secondary School in Solomondale outside Polokwane in Limpopo. The laboratory will assist learners in accessing reliable and affordable information. Malatsi says the education system must be able to adapt to digital transformation.
We are doing this because we want learners in rural areas like this one to have the same quality of connectivity, the same access to digital skills as other learners are doing in other parts of the world. Our target is to make sure that by 2029 there is no area in the country that doesn't have connectivity, and that connectivity must be quality of connectivity. And for also learning, we must move beyond the era of chalkboards into smart learning, so that these learners can access learning materials that are accessible to other learners and have them compete.
The bail hearing of a 54-year-old Walter Sisulu University staff member accused of killing a student at the university's Mthatha campus has been postponed to Thursday next week for closing arguments. The investigating officer Mandla Mia and SRC President Themba Zikhali were cross-examined. 24-year-old Sisonke Mbolekwa was allegedly shot and killed, while 2 other students were injured as they protested against poor living conditions at the university's residences. Lwandile Mbulali reports.
The defense denied allegations that the accused might have tampered or might tamper with evidence if he is released. This is after witnesses told the court the accused instructed the university's staff members to collect cartridges on the scene and deregister the deceased student. The defense denied this, saying the accused had no authority to give such instructions. SRC Premier in the Mthatha campus, Themba Zikhali, told the court students are still angry following the death of Mbolekwa as he was fighting for his rights. I am Lwandile Mbulali, Mthatha in the Eastern Cape.
Traffic authorities in Cape Town say the N2 outbound between Baden-Powell and Newway and the N2 inbound in Spine Road have been reopened. The roads were closed earlier due to a service delivery protest action. Civil Defense Agency in Gaza says the Israeli military has killed about 100 people in the last 12 hours in another intense wave of strikes in the north of the territory. The focus of the offensive has been Beit Lahia and the Jabalia refugee camp. The Israeli military said it had hit more than 150 terror targets. It said its forces in northern Gaza were operating to locate and dismantle what it called terrorist infrastructure sites. Ismail Abu Atta lost his brother in the attack in Beit Lahia.
We were sleeping and the houses were full. Suddenly at 1:30 and without prior warning they bombed a house. Many children and women were killed and their bodies scattered in the streets.
Recapping the top story, President Cyril Ramaphosa has filed papers in the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria seeking leave to appeal the full court judgment of the said court, which found that his decision to sign the National Health Insurance Act is reviewable and subsequently gave him 10 days to furnish the record of the decision. I am on Delambana for SFM News Headlines at 4:30.
In sports, Kgatlana left out of Banyana squad for friendlies and African champs medals sets tone for ambitious weightlifter Will Swart. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N12 eastbound in Bedfordview has an incident reported near the R24 highway split. Northumberland Avenue southbound in Northgate has a crash before Ariel Avenue, and the N12 R24 westbound in Bedfordview queuing on both routes towards Gilulis Interchange. In KZN, the N3 southbound in Mooirivier has a crash reported near Headcote Interchange, so you're asked to expect delays, and the N3 westbound in Pietermaritzburg queuing towards Peter Brown Drive. That's due to a truck crash on the eastbound carriageway. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit, the N2 outbound is queuing towards Spine Road exit, and the M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Welcome to the SABC TV License Loyalty Program, where your payment isn't just about paying fees. It's about joining a vibrant community of connected viewers. Ready for the journey? Here's your roadmap. Sign up at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za and unlock an instant reward. You'll get an SMS to confirm your registration. Make a 50% or 100% payment to your account for a payment confirmation SMS and a promotional code. Explore our partners' product catalogs for an array of offerings. Receive an SMS voucher for your favorite outlet as the icing on the cake. Don't wait. Dive into a world of benefits. Register now at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments. They make a difference. Reigning champions Bafana Style are in a jubilant mood closer to the end of the season. They are enjoying every moment on the summit, but Magesi FC have an agenda to cause an upset. This is the Betway Premiership. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game, Mamelodi Sundowns FC versus Magesi FC on Sunday 18 May, streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One at 4:30 p.m. Also available on SABC radio stations at 5:30 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
As a medical doctor, I've dedicated my life to helping others. Being a regular blood donor, I was shocked to learn of my low hemoglobin levels, which prompted further investigations. My diagnosis of myelodysplastic syndrome meant that my only chance of survival would be through a stem cell transplant. Finding a match was easier for me than for most patients. However, not everyone is so lucky. If you are between the ages of 17 and 55 years, register with dkmsafrica.org to become a stem cell donor and give someone out there a lifeline. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
I'm just looking at some of the big global stories. You know, the Russians and the Ukrainians finally actually getting together and talking, and they're discussing now a deal around prisoner exchange. That hasn't happened for many, many years. That's one thing. Then the other one regarding the Middle East and Palestine or Gaza. Interesting, Donald Trump saying many people are starving in that region, and Marco Rubio talks about a humanitarian crisis. I mean, I'm just saying that because there are just so many contradictions in terms of what they say on a daily basis. And then back home, we now have confirmation that, you know, the South African group, the delegation led by the president, will be heading off to Washington next week, right? So who's in the team? The president naturally will be there, together with the head of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, together with the Minister in the Presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, and then Park Stowers, the Trade, Industry and Competitions Minister, and then the Minister of Agriculture, John Steenhuisen. And that's the people we know in terms of the ministry, besides the backroom staff that will make up that entire contingent, which I think would be a significant visit to the USA. Right, let's talk about something of significance in the worst possible way. I don't know if you've been following the story of Dr. Aluluto Mazwi, 25 years old, an intern at the Prince Mshiyeni Memorial Hospital in KwaZulu-Natal. Well, sadly, tragically, this intern doctor died on Monday after, being unwell, and then was told, unwell or not, had to come to work anyway. So that's what's happened. Let's find out the story behind this really horrible story with Dr. Zanele Bikicha, who's the South African Medical Association spokesperson. Dr. Bikicha, I appreciate your time here on the National Pulse.
Hi, how are you? Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. So so the story, I've given it in one line. Intern doctor unwell, called in sick asking to stay at home, being told he had to come to work, comes to work and then dies. Is that what happened, or is there more to it?
Yeah, there's a little bit more to it. Firstly, we need to remember this is somebody's son. That's one. And he's also, what we're looking forward to in terms of the future. Doctors, we don't know what he would have done, especially looking at a country that's trying to get it, the NHI. But there's definitely a bit more to it. Dr. Mazwi, it is true. Indeed, Dr. Mazwi was ill and he had taken time off. He was a first-year intern. And unfortunately, his illness, was not, responding at that point in time. And was just put in that awkward place where he literally was, intimidated to say, look, if you do not come, we will not sign you out of this rotation. And it put him in that kind of a situation. And unfortunately, we are where we are today.
So who made that call? When he spoke to that person to say, I'm not well, who made the call to say, you have to come?
So when you are an intern, just so that anyone who's listening in the public can understand, an intern is a doctor that has just finished medical school. So in South Africa, for 2 years after you finish medical school, you are what is considered an intern. Then over those 2 years, you rotate amongst the different specialities so that you can, gain competency in all of them before you decide what you want to specialize in. So he was allocated to pediatrics. So he would have been supervised by the consultant that is in his unit for pediatrics at Mshini. The person is known. I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to feel what is happening in social media, but it was his supervisor in his pediatric rotation at Prince Mshini.
Okay, so what happens next? I mean, there's a human story which we'll talk about in a moment, but what happens next in terms of this issue? Is there a claim against, uncaring, negligence, something that the family can take up on this? Because, a life has been lost.
So what we have done, firstly, as the Medical Association, we had a meeting with all of these interns. Because we wanted to, make sure that we're verifying certain things and also getting the temperature on the ground. And I must say, from the stories that we're getting from these interns, it's a systematic issue of bullying of interns. It's not an isolated incident. And I also, because I'm in SAMA, we've noted it in other hospitals as well. So there's genuinely a problem in the way that people treat interns. So what we did is after that, we went to the facility and we met with the hospital CEO and some of his managers. What we've agreed first pointly was that this doctor be removed from the supervision of junior doctors. So we've agreed on that. Then there is going to be an investigation that is going to be launched from Monday. An investigating officer was appointed, and it's an external investigating officer, so he will be in charge of taking the investigation forward. And I think from those findings, we'll be able to act then. With regards to the facility itself, Mshini, we've also written to the Health Professions Council because they are the ones that accredit any institution to be able to train. So we've asked them to also launch a parallel investigation into the treatment of interns at this facility.
Now, the human story goes like this. Here's I'm quoting the uncle Vumani Mazwi saying, for him to be subjected to these conditions after all the efforts, it's hard not to be distraught. As a family, we've had the feeling there is something we could have done. And then saying, imagine losing a child when he's starting his professional career after years of struggling and sacrifices that he and his family made. When you have someone who made the moves and he makes it, that child becomes the pride of the broader family. I can say much more, but clearly that child's dream is broken, the life is over, the family's dreams have just ended. You made the point earlier that there's been this culture of negligence and taking advantage of these interns. I'm also well aware of the ongoing stories for decades that interns work 48-hour shifts without any breaks. It's like the norm. How did we get to that level of that in a place of safety and good health, that it's a very unhealthy environment?
Now, at the root of this, it's two issues. One is the pure hierarchy of medicine, where, some of us grew up in a culture where you gave respect to your senior consultant, your registrars, you viewed them in a pedestal. You put them on a pedestal, and you then had to submit under them. But that works if you are in a mutually respectful scenario. So you respect their experience and knowledge, and they transfer it onto you. So the hierarchy system is also what is at the root of this, because now when you've got an intern who rotates through a division, at the end of the rotation, they must be signed out for competency by the supervisor. So that in itself leads to a possible, playground for intimidation. So that's the first thing, that the direct power that you have as a supervisor to either accredit or not whether the person leaves the rotation is partly to blame. Then we look at the whole system to say there's so much understaffing when it comes to the Department of Health that people are put under this kind of pressure in trying to make sure that we cover the hospital. You remember, a hospital works 24 hours, 7 days a week. There is no closing in a hospital. So there must be doctors on duty at all times. So the shortage then puts a pressure on those that are there and causes them to be overworked, and it leaves little room for deviation. So when one person is not there, it becomes a crisis.
Okay,
so those two things are really there.
All right, very quickly, you mentioned the supervisor's been actually put on leave. There's a disciplinary hearing that takes place next week. What would be the position of your organization? Where do you want this to go? Very quickly.
The position of us as SAMA is that we feel that we want an internal investigation to be done, and should it be found and proven that this doctor had intimidated Dr. Mazwi into coming into work even though he was unfit, then swift action must be taken. Unfortunately, we can only take action at the hospital level, and also we will take action at an HPCSA level where we will report the practitioner depending on the findings. It is unfortunately then only up to the family if there is any criminal implications. Please understand though that we are still saying an investigation will be done. So we can deal with it at the level of getting them disciplined at work, and also at an HPCSA level. But should there be a criminal element, the family would have to take the lead on that.
Okay, that's where we can leave it. Dr. Zanele Bikicha, the family has to take the lead. In fact, they've lost their leader. That's the dramatic situation that they face themselves with their young intern, 25-year-old doctor now having passed on. Right, we're going to talk about the drama around the CETAs that we touched on yesterday. We'll talk about that next.
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit cfi.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45, proudly sponsored by CFI. CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
The Bees are fairly impressed with their run this season, but they want to win at home to concretize a top half position.
That's a crack. Oh, what a crack. That's Brentford for you. There you go.
Yet the Cottagers want to be remembered for an away win during their penultimate game of the season.
He's done it again! Introduction! Harry Wilson makes it 2-1 at Fulham. Now go home! Off you go!
This is the Premier League. Witness the mouth-watering clash between Brentford FC and Fulham FC on Sunday 18 May at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Save
and win a car with Spar for real. Stand to win one of 50 fiery red Hyundai Grand i10 sedans. Buy any participating products and swipe your rewards card to enter. Get Cadbury Crunchy Lunch Bar or 5-star chocolate bars, any two for 22 Rand, plus 50 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Or 175 gram Protex soap, any two for 24 Rand, plus 50 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Price is valid until 19 May while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you. As we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity, we bring you rich conversations and stories that shape the continent. Join us as we celebrate African pride, unity, and progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Well, looking forward to chatting to Haley Reichert, the founder of Operation Watershed, coming up just now and after 5 o'clock in the Friday Fireside Chat. But let's talk about the drama that unfolded yesterday. You know, we spoke to the EFF MP Sihle Lonzi, as well as Tsepo Low, the ANC chief whip of the study group on higher education, about the issue of the CETA boards, right? So you know that Lonzi raised some issues. Those issues, he was effectively thrown out of the committee meeting. When he put the issues to the DG, they refused. They said he was late. They didn't allow that. But the main purpose of his raising the issues was he felt there were issues of nepotism that had taken place in terms of the appointment. So to go to and fro between who said what and who was late and who was early, at that stage, the response was that issue will be tabled on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday. Subsequently, we find out late last night, the story moved dramatically with the Higher Education Minister, Dr. Nobuhle Nkabane, then withdrawing the board appointments last night. So all those key appointments withdrawn. There'll be a whole re-look at how the process will take place, and that we will find out what that happens. So quite dramatic. Maybe in this case, you're a good example of one party, two parties, and there's the EFF, there's the DA, as well as the MK party, and maybe others, all effectively holding Parliament to account, right? So, having chatted to Sihle Lonzi earlier yesterday, this morning he was busy once again. He spoke to Elvis Preslin on that early morning show, The First Take, and this is what he said.
Of course, we must welcome that finally sanity has prevailed. And we're saying finally because we had an opportunity to fix this in the Portfolio Committee of Higher Education and Training, whose role is to hold the executive accountable. But because people were so hell-bent at defending the corruption of the ANC, at defending the nepotism of the ANC, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, who is an ANC member, refused for me to ask the Director General of Higher Education a simple question, which was, are you aware of the board appointments? And are you aware that the son of the minister, Kwete Mantashe, has been appointed as one of the chairpersons alongside his current advisor and many other people who are connected or ANC leaders and members? So the role of Parliament was weakened on that day because as opposed to allowing us as members of Parliament, as an EFF member of Parliament, to pose those questions and get to understand what was the process which was followed to appoint these board chairpersons. All of us remember I was then kicked out of Parliament, they called bouncers and they dragged me out. So on that front, we must welcome it to say that at least now the process is going to start from scratch, and we're going to be monitoring the process, ensuring that there's transparency, ensuring that there's fairness, and there's no nepotism or favoritism that is taking place in the CETAs.
What do you think led to the minister withdrawing? And do you think that the minister's decision to withdraw the appointments is a sufficient response to the allegations of cronyism?
You're quite correct. It's not sufficient. And this is why we're also going to be following up on the previous process. Because the argument we're making is that, number one, Paja, I'm not a lawyer, but with the little legal knowledge I have, if you are exercising public power, you can't rescind your own decision. And we would have said this in our statement that we released yesterday, to say that actually the minister was supposed to approach the court and accept that she was at fault. and ask for what is called a self-review from the court. And then, of course, we were not going to be against that. I doubt anyone was going to oppose the application. And then the court was going to set aside that decision. Because there must be an admission, both from the department, the portfolio committee chair, and the minister, that there was a problem in the process of appointing board-seater chairpersons. We can't simply accept that as South Africans, people can just wake up, put children of ANC ministers, put politicians, and then when they get, the resistance from opposition parties in parliament, now all of a sudden, a few days later, they just release a statement and say they are withdrawing it. This is the same problem we had under the budget, debacle, where a minister just goes and announces that, I'm no longer going to be raising the VAT without following the due process so that we can get to the bottom of this. Why? We don't want a repeat of this. The reality is that the ANC is failing to come to terms with the fact that it is no longer a majority in parliament. So the decisions that they would have typically been able to pass, like these ones, like the ones of VAT, like the ones of budget, because they now need much more broader consultation and participation of other political parties, they can no longer abuse their majority. So we're watching them. That's why she couldn't pass this, because she knew that they can't just go to a portfolio committee and put up their hands because they've got a majority in parliament, and then we must forget about this. So every single thing that has got to do with public funds, we've got an eye on it.
Well, seriously, a great example of democracy at work. I mean, clearly, one person, two people, three people, maybe multiple parties have done their job, and well done to them. And I mean, that point in terms of the statement later last night, and I'll read one line. Following broader consultations with stakeholders in the post-school education and training sector and their counsel regarding the appointment of the chairpersons of the boards of the seaters, I have decided to recalibrate the process which was overseen by an independent panel. I call on all relevant constituencies to nominate candidates. And that's really what happened. Of course, the EFF as well issued a statement. I can't go through it all, but they sent one to Cedric Frolick saying, as the Honourable National Chairperson of the Economic Freedom Fighters and Parliamentary Chief Whip, I want to formally lodge a complaint regarding the recurring and increasingly concerning conduct of the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and Training. The complaint follows the events of the committee meeting of yesterday, during which the MP Sihle Lonzi attempted to exercise his right to oversight by raising serious concerns. I can't go through it all, but clearly they complained about the way he was treated in that issue. But all of that does speak a lot about the checks and balances that are so important in Parliament, and all done for the benefit of the people. Let's get the news headlines. It's 4:30. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, President Cyril Ramaphosa has filed papers in the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria seeking leave to appeal the full court judgment of the said court, which found that his decision to sign the National Health Insurance Act is reviewable, and subsequently gave him 10 days to furnish the record of the decision. Edward Zuma, son of MK Party founder Jacob Zuma, has joined his father's party at an event at Eshowe on the KZN North Coast, and the former Gabon President Ali Bongo and his family have been released from detention and flown to Angola. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Hose.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg, slow moving towards Crown Interchange, and Linksfield Road eastbound in Edenvale, queuing towards First Avenue. In KZN, the N3 westbound slow moving towards Peter Brown Drive due to a truck crash on the eastbound carriageway, and the M1 Higginson Highway westbound in Chatsworth has a crash reported near the Shallcross Road exit. In Cape Town, Marine Drive northbound in Tableview, slow moving towards Dolphin Beach, and Hindle Road in Blue Downs, slow moving at Westbank Main Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Jimmy, you definitely got your eye on a national team. Go for it.
I do, and it's Banyana to be specific, where Thembi Kgatlana has been left out of the 24-player squad for the upcoming international friendly against Zambia and Botswana due to club commitments. Banyana coach Desiree Ellis has retained the core of her 2022 WAFCON winning squad while introducing a few new and returning faces as she continues to build depth ahead of the continental showpiece. Another notable inclusion is Refilwe Jane making headlines after recovery from a long-term injury layoff. Elsewhere, Bayer Leverkusen will try to set a German league record with a 34th away game in a row without defeat when they take on Mainz in the Bundesliga finale tomorrow, with departing coach Xavi Alonso ready to leave on high. Tomorrow's game will be the last with Leverkusen for Alonso, who is leaving after 2.5 years in charge, with Spanish media linking him to a move to Real Madrid. Now, Leverkusen, who will finish in second place behind champions Bayern, can now set a new record with what would be 2 entire seasons with no defeat on the road. In rugby, departing players Edwin van der Merwe and Marius Lowe will run out for their final outing in a Lions jersey as they take on Ospreys in their final United Rugby Championship match of the season tomorrow. Van der Merwe departs for the Sharks at the end of the season, while Lowe has signed a contract with the English club Sales Sharks for the next few seasons. Then in weightlifting, SA weightlifter Will Swart feels that he's edging closer to his dream of representing the country at the 2026 Commonwealth Games following a podium finish at the recent African Championships in Mauritius. Fairly new on the scene, Swart has made great strides in the sport and already has quite a busy schedule of international as well as local tournaments penciled in for the rest of the year. And ahead of the Gauteng Champs this weekend, Swart says that the coming weeks are going to require focus.
Next now is I've been resting for a week. I've stayed in Mauritius and have been just having a bit of a rest, which is great. And the next big competition is this Gauteng Champs, which I'll do that one. And then in August this year is Commonwealth Champs. That also now is a qualifying competition for Commonwealth Games next year. So we'll be training really hard now over the winter, May, June, July, and the first bit of August to have as good a competition in August as well in India, and I'll try get some PBs there and hopefully some new South African records as well.
In motorsport, Oscar Piastri led McLaren 1-2 in practice 1 of the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix ahead of Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz. More on other sports in the next hour.
Okay, so just by the way, I mean, you were saying next hour. I know. Well, we'll talk about just the chances of those big victories. I mean, once he's playing in the final, but to get into something really big. By the way, there's a sports voice note I want to play, which is linked to what we spoke about earlier on. Remember that? Soccer, rugby, and the cost. Can I do that? Let's just see if we can. Yeah, here it is.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Hope you're well. You know, this whole thing with the tickets for the Springbok Italian game, you know, people can't actually compare soccer and rugby because the economics behind the things are so vastly different. I mean, soccer, you can play 2 or 3 games a week, whereas rugby, you play 1, maybe 2 or a week, or maybe 1 game every 2 weeks. So you've still got to cover all of those things. Secondly, this is an international game as opposed to a cup championship game between two local sides. I mean, you can't compare the actual costs. So it's not race-based. It's all about economics and the costs of these different venues and hosting it and things like that, which they've got to recoup their money to make the game actually profitable, to pay the players and things like that. Mark from Cape Town.
Okay, thanks for that, Mark. I mean, he's got a point about it's not race-based. I don't think anybody said that.
It's not.
I know, but what he does reflect the realities of different economies. In the same way that, you know, paying for a theater ticket versus going to a movie, and many movies are closing down, by the way. You know, they're different economies of scale. That's the reality.
I hear what he's saying. However, is it justifiable enough to be at that price? I hear what he's saying.
I'll say it bluntly, it's justified as long as people pay for it. And they pay for it.
Yeah.
That's the truth. Yeah.
He's short, loud, and definitely not a licensed therapist, but he's asking the hard questions. It's Heart to Heart with Kevin, the only talk show where the guests spill the tea and Kevin spills the jokes. Real talk, real laughs, and real short host. Heart to Heart with Kevin, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on S3.
Reigning champions Bafana Style are in a jubilant mood closer to the end of the season. They are enjoying every moment on the summit, but Magesi FC have an agenda to cause an upset. This is the Betway Premiership. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game, Mamelodi Sundowns FC versus Magesi FC on Sunday 18 May, streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC 1 at 4:30 p.m. Also available on SABC radio stations at 5:30 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Let's get to those numbers with Paswane Mpatlele, Senior Accounts Manager at Markway Fund Managers. Paswane, good to connect on the last working day of the week. What have you got?
Afternoon, Ashraf, and to your listeners. Well, looking into the markets, Ashraf, following the early trade deal with the US and China, markets have eased fears and have also discounted future growth and has helped equities go up. Global yields are, and thanks to further support from company earnings, global yields are also showing some pricing of forward growth as they are rising, and sentiment has generally improved. Data today we've seen has been supportive. Eurozone has trade surplus is rising to 37 billion euros as more exports took place as there was front running, of course, because of the tariff wars, but it remains positive in the short run. General caution remains, especially when the US data is still mixed. Today we saw the consumer sentiment is at lows as well due to inflation concerns, and dollar is still trying to find its way, sitting at a 101 level. But when we just really look at how gold is performing, it's getting generally pressurized by geopolitics issues being neutral. Gold is down 1.7 today at $3,182 an ounce. Oil is up 2.6%, sitting at $64.70 a barrel. When we look at equity exposure, US equities are flat. Europe, DAX CAC up 0.1, FTSE up 0.4. As we head for a big week next week with the budget, JSE holds up weekly gains and adding up 0.1 today, as our industrials were up 0.7. Financials did feel pressure, down 0.1, but resources felt the most, down 0.9. Rand against the dollar sits at 18.10. Rand against the euro 20.23, and Rand against the pound 24.02.
Okay, perfect. That's figured all the numbers we need. Paswane, thanks for that. And we will connect with you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend. It means it's time for me to connect with you because we need to get a sense of what you're feeling right now. What moves the national pulse?
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, let's get to your thoughts. Siggy in Durban, go for it. Siggy, hi.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah, you're live on the air. Go for it, Siggy.
Okay, good afternoon. Thanks. I would really like to congratulate the MP from the EFF. At least they brought dignity back to her parliament. We all thought they were always causing havoc and whatever they were doing. But the man could debate one-on-one, and he actually brought dignity back to the House.
Well, a point well taken, and I think he expressed himself really well, very real clarity of thought on that issue. But
absolutely,
the bottom line, and when it shows you, really speaking, the potential of this country, honestly speaking, when we get rid of all this about which party is the better party and ultimately deliver for the people, wow. We're just a better
all
country.
of that, Ashraf, the man spoke with dignity. He addressed the issue, what's on hand. So if the EFF can do that and leave all the other shenanigans that they did previously, there'll be a force to be reckoned with in Parliament, because they're debating what was on the table. Nothing about who you belong to, where. He just asked simple, straightforward questions, and he told them straight. I didn't use foul language. I didn't talk out of respect. I spoke what Parliament actually requires of us.
All right, thank you for raising that.
No, thanks, man. Thanks for taking my call too.
Much appreciated. Let's get to other thoughts here. Here's one.
Hi, Ashraf and lovely South Africans. It's Eddie from Ondalsrus in the Free State. No, I really support the member of the EFF for standing. I'm supporting him for standing as South African against anything that is not according to the book. I salute him for that. And these days we need to stand up as South Africans without looking at political affiliation. All those who want to build this country must stand up against anything that is wrong that wants to destroy this country further. All the leaders who wants to do things as they wish, they must be stopped as long as they are not doing the right thing.
Well,
thank you very much.
Thanks, Eddie. Must say, I agree with you. In the same way you would sub a player who's not performing on the pitch, do the same thing with those in Parliament. Here's another.
Ashraf, truly speaking, it's very excruciating to see how DA is treating our country or our president. The president is not supposed to sign the Bella Act. The president is not supposed to sign NHI. The president is not supposed to go on issue of the land, you see. It can't work like that. It's enough. It's enough. We don't know whether it's the constitution or not. But now, for how long? Now the president has to run for court papers, blah blah blah, because the DA is taking him to court for the third time, if you like. Thank you, Willie in Kuma.
Thanks for that, Willie. But I mean, as you've also heard with the other issues, there's a democracy in action, and all the different parties use the tools at their disposal, don't they?
Ashraf, good afternoon. I think Cyril Ramaphosa, our president, was very brave for including Steenhuisen just to balance the equation. And the second point is, I think you are supposed to include Aaron Motoledi. I trust that guy. I think he was going to make things easier for them, you see, because he knows exactly how they use that money Trump was giving to us. I thank you.
Okay, there we are. That's another one there. And before we get to Phineas, by the way, here's one, and I've been following the story. I don't know if you've been following it. There's now confirmation regarding that the supporters who went to the Bafana game against Malawi and they protested against Red Card Israel. Then they were kicked out. Some of them were detained. I understand now that Africa for Palestine has confirmed that the 5 activists now have laid a charge against the police for criminal charges. That story will certainly run its course sometime next week as we see how that one unfolds. Okay, let's play another of your soundbites.
Hi, Ashraf. Errol here from Durban. Do you know, during Donald Trump's first term as president, when farm murders were at their highest, at their peak, when many white farmers as well as black farmers were being murdered, Ramaphosa was over in America and he said, there are no farm murders taking place, nothing at all, which was a blatant lie. So if Donald Trump and company didn't believe him then, how are they going to believe him this time? I hope that, for South Africa's sake, that it can be smoothed over and we can become friends with America again. Anyway, that's my take. Errol, Durban.
Thanks for that, Errol. Okay, well, can we become friends? I think it's a big trip in terms of what's going to come out. What do you make of the names that have been expressed in terms of who's going to go with the president to the USA next week? I mean, anybody missing from there or not? Certainly the president has been speaking about his expectations regarding the importance of it. Let's see how that plays out. But here's another of your soundbites.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and the listeners. This Ronaldo Jose, the apology, I don't trust it. That guy is what has made him realize that is wrong? Just 2 weeks ago, he was defending his position, and then now today he's sending an apology. I don't trust his apology at all.
And talking about the president, he's been obviously being asked questions, and he said today, this is Ramaphosa, the false narrative about a genocide are not a reflection of who we are as a nation. And during our working visit to the USA, we will be advancing a proudly South African message. And then he made the point that the USA is an important trading partner to South Africa, and we'll be going there to USA to discuss issues of mutual interest. Okay, I think we certainly get that. Let's see, there's another one of those. Here's one about Ramaphosa and Trump.
Hi, Ashraf. Errol, yeah, from Durban.
And that already. Sorry, let's get that out of the way. And we'll get right down to the bottom about soccer tickets.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Okay, if the rugby ticket goes from 1,000 to 15,000 and the soccer ticket of a Nedbank Cup goes from 250, why don't those white rich people go to watch soccer? Because it is cheaper than rugby. This is show that if they afford to pay 1,000 something close to 15,000 to watch rugby, that shows that they can even afford to pay for watch soccer, even in large numbers. That means that racial discrimination is still high in South Africa, and we are still highly divided. We as a black people, we need to stop going to watch rugby, because it shows that rugby is a white sport, soccer is a black sport. That is what it is. Thank you.
Well, do you have any idea how many black players now of different shades of black are making huge headwaves in rugby as a career, as an industry? I think, and something we brought up before, not so much with Bafana, which has been in the doldrums for about a decade. As you know, things have changed now. But at our PSL level, and as you know, there's been this talk that SuperSport United may well change to Bloom Celtic again. One of the biggest problems with our domestic sport, soccer in particular, football, is how we've allowed our heritage to be stripped. That means clubs can sell their clubs, move to other places very, very quickly to a different city and go on with the heritage. Now, you tell me, what impact is that having on our love for those sports?
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf Garda. I think there must be consequences and repercussions for AfriForum and individuals who are spreading false information about South Africa, creating a wrong impression that there is a genocide in South Africa, a genocide that does not exist, a white persecution that does not exist. There must be repercussions for AfriForum. Thank you.
Well, I mean, should there be repercussions? But I think from a South African perspective, you have to wonder that if AfriForum was able to influence American policy the way they have, then why can't South Africa Inc. do the same thing? Seriously, we're the whole country. Focus on that. Why can't we do that?
Hey, Ashraf, my name is Leslie Rima. Do you still remember when Health Minister Aaron Motsoaledi said Donald Trump doesn't owe South Africa a cent? And then he was talking these things emotionally. Right now, when Donald Trump stopped financial aid, here are the consequences of lacking the funds. Thank you.
Well, you can't dismiss the impact because, as I said, if issues of HIV/AIDS treatment is compromised, that is a huge problem, and we don't have the money to even support it, do we?
I've got my point to put across. When it comes to the budget 3.0, we're expecting to hear the minister addressing us about this 500 million that the president has announced for the small businesses. This money needs to be properly channeled through him as the Minister of Finance and via Lesija Kganyago, because them putting it across now via Stella Ndabeni won't be here for accountability when we want to know what happened to the money. There won't be any traces of this money if it is not properly structured into the fiscal framework of the budget. It needs to be put in there. That is my request to Minister Kotongwane. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Nonkululeko. Let's see if, I don't think they're going to listen to you, but there we are. I get your point, right? Let's get more. So, you know that on a Friday we go into the fireside chat after 5. But for now, it means there's more time to talk to you about some of the biggest issues that for you moves the national pulse. So, you can call in. You can call in live, 086 000 2032. I'll take your calls right away. And you can send those WhatsApps, text or voice note, or you can tweet as well. All of it, all available here on the National Pulse.
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit CFI.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45. Proudly sponsored by CFI. CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
Marawai, why did you think you could change your tire when you've never even changed a light bulb successfully? Marawai, why not switch to Santam and get 24/7 roadside assistance to get you moving again? Choose the insurer with cover options that suit your needs. Call 0860 444 or SMS cover to 36101. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
TSG believe if they double their efforts, they will close the curtain with huge smiles. But the Reds are on standby to cheers to an incredible season. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Witness TSG Hoffenheim against Bayern München on Saturday, 17 May at 3 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC3, and on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Do you want an experience of a lifetime? Where every day is filled with challenges of providing Lisa Vanderpump curated experiences while dealing with rivalries, romances, and misadventures. It's drama at Vanderpump's French Estate. Chantel Rosabelle and the staff can't wait to give you a front row seat to all the drama. Catch Vanderpump Villa, Saturdays on S3 at 8:30 p.m. S3 open up.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
I'm looking at a tweet from Lewis Pugh. Now, he's this British South African who's done amazing things, swimming across great waterways to raise issues around nature. And he said, listen to this one. This was from yesterday. Today, I will begin a swim around the island where Jaws was filmed. When it hit screens 50 years ago, the movie shaped how the world saw sharks. It's time to rewrite that story. Because the most frightening thing about sharks isn't their presence. It's what happens to our oceans without them. Oh my goodness. You certainly got me thinking about this now. Anonymous in Durban, go for it. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah.
On the topic of the refugees that have gone, the farmers.
Yeah.
The opportunity was given to them by the American government, and they snapped it up with both hands. I will wish them all the best. If I'm a colored South African, I've got kids. If I had an opportunity, if that opportunity presented itself to me to immigrate to America, I will grab it with both hands. Not that I'm running away from the crime or anything, but just for the opportunity for sport for my kids. I've got a 14-year-old boy. He's currently playing under 17 football. He's excellent. He's at his second year in high school. He's playing for the first team football. But whenever I take him for trials at academies and stuff, he gets overlooked. And you can see that the boy is much better than all the other players in that specific position. But he's never, ever given the opportunity.
And the reason he's getting overlooked is why?
I'm going to say because he's a colored boy.
Okay.
Colored boy, green eyes, straight hair. He doesn't get noticed.
Okay.
He doesn't get noticed,
All
and
right.
I'll move just for that opportunity.
Okay, got that. Thank you for that. Well,
Thanks, Ashraf.
I
Great show.
hope it didn't
That's all.
happen. I can't verify that, but I certainly hear what you're saying. Right, but I wonder, in terms of actually moving, I mean, people have different reasons. I think the reason here overall, not the caller, the football parent, is there are other issues that I think we need to be concerned about. And in this case here with the refugees, it's because there's been a disinformation. That doesn't mean that people are finding it, that life is pretty tough. Life is absolutely tough, and we know that. Right, let's get to more thoughts, and lots of people talking about the ticket price issues that we spoke about, but also here's another one about Motsoaledi.
Good afternoon, or is it even in Ashraf? My name is Razin Popo. Look, I think you should put it clear on air that Motsoaledi, Aaron Motsoaledi cannot accompany the president to America because he is going to represent the president in Geneva on the very same date. So I hear people saying he should have picked Motsoaledi and so on and so on. But I think he should clarify that as well. Thank you.
Okay, but I mean, was Motsoaledi in the running for this? I don't think so.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to the listeners. Ashraf, we don't need America, Ashraf. We might be in a tight spot right now and we might think that we need them, but eventually South Africa will prevail. And the African countries must stick together. Cupcake, I don't know what he's going to do there to Trump, because Cupcake, we all know him. He's going to open South Africa for investment. All he wants is to sell the bloody country. That's all that's him.
Oh,
Thank you, Ashraf. Think should have been cancelled that whole trip. We don't want him there.
No, I don't know if I agree with you. Hey, I'm not impressed by Donald Trump, not at all. But I'm also a bit practical and realistic about things. Temba and Klebecha, go for it. Hi, Temba.
Ashraf, good afternoon, man.
Yeah,
good
good
afternoon to
afternoon.
your callers. You are running out of time. Look, man, just a response, man, to your second last caller.
Yeah.
The colored gentleman with the colored boy, 14-year-old.
Footballer, yeah, right.
Yes. Look, I hear the pain in his heart. I don't want to say I share it, but my worry is the evidence out there speaks against his belief that colored boys being excluded by academies. Look, in the number of players in the PSL that are flourishing are colored players. Stellenbosch as a team is made up majority of colored players. The Cape Town City as a team is made up of such. And a number of academies, soccer academies, Eastern Cape and Western Cape, are made up and are led by colored coaches. It can never be a racist issue. My worry is him sharing his views in front of his child and his child catching up his views without him being matured enough to understand what is he talking about. He should please insulate the child from his own belief and his views.
All right.
Just support the child in football. Otherwise, colored boys are flourishing out there.
Well, you're right. You're right
many
about the
academies.
Yeah, you're right about the flourishing. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you for that. Only because, we don't have enough time, unfortunately. But perhaps another conversation for some other time about just dealing with perceptions of racism from all sides of the South African spectrum, right? Here's one quick one about Ronaldo Gous.
Hey, Ashraf, the part of the apology from Gous that I've heard is kind of self-serving, contains however. So he doesn't believe in redress, basically, but he's apologizing for what he said. I'm glad he lost his job because to me, it doesn't sound genuine. I'm still going to listen to the rest of it, but from the start, it's not genuine. Thanks, it's Bongi here.
Okay, God, that's his Bongi. Thanks for that. Lots of wide reaction, cross-section of different views here on the National Pulse. Now, being a Friday, we're going to fireside chat mode, which we'll do in a moment. Let's get the news. It's 5 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf. Ramaphosa seeks leave to appeal over NHI ruling and former Gabon president is released. Good day to you. President Cyril Ramaphosa has filed papers in the High Court in Pretoria seeking leave to appeal the court's ruling, which found that his decision to sign the National Health Insurance Act is reviewable and subsequently gave him 10 days to furnish the record of the decision. The judgment forms part of an ongoing battle to review and set aside the president's decision to sign the NHI Act, led by the Board of Healthcare Funders. Kenny Mapanga reports.
The President, in his latest bid, lists numerous grounds for leave to appeal, including that the full court in its decision erred in failing to take into account the breadth of the discretion enjoyed by the President. In doing so, and in further seeking to determine how to exercise his constitutional obligation, the court committed the separation of powers harm. The President not only seeks leave to appeal in the High Court, but also intends to institute an application for leave to appeal directly to the Constitutional Court by the 27th of May, 2025. Kani Mapanga, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Edward Zuma, the son of MK Party founder Jacob Zuma, has joined his father's party. He's been welcomed by senior leaders of the party at an event at Ishawi in KwaZulu-Natal.
We will contribute in whatever form the MK in this region requires us to contribute, so as to be able to make a very big impact in the region and in whatever capacity.
The second phase of the Klipdrift water project aimed at bringing clean water to residents of Hammanskraal, north of Pretoria, while refurbishment continues at the Rooiwal wastewater treatment works, is set to be completed in June. The project experienced a 7-week delay due to bad weather conditions over recent months. The Water and Sanitation Minister, Phemi Majodina.
Whilst we know that we have not covered all the areas, because those modules are 4, the second module will be done by end of June, then end of July, August, then the fourth one by September. So they were done in a staggered manner. But I must also explain that we are delayed with about 7 weeks to complete, especially module 2. You'll remember that there was inclement weather, heavy rainfall in this area of Gauteng, and that has delayed us. However, we have doubled the efforts through the contractors to ensure that we catch up on the lost time.
The Boksburg Magistrates Court east of Johannesburg has ruled that it will only grant the media permission to record audio and not film the court proceedings of a case against a man accused of raping and impregnating an 11-year-old. Media organisations, including the SABC, applied to broadcast the proceedings, wherein the 29-year-old accused was expected to apply for bail. The case has been postponed to Thursday next week. Rifliwe Mekwa reports.
Magistrate Sipho Manana ruled that the broadcast media can only audio record court proceedings but not film. He says the application by the broadcast media to film proceedings was made very late. Lawyer for the accused also objected to the media request to televise proceedings. As the proceedings unfolded, the accused sat in the dock appearing calm and distraught. DNA tests are yet to determine whether the 29-year-old is the alleged perpetrator. The victim's family alleges this is not the first time that the accused allegedly raped the minor. That the alleged abuse started when the young girl was only 6 years old. Rifilo Mekwa, SABC News, Boksburg.
The former Gabon president Ali Bongo and his family have been released from detention and flown to Angola. He was overthrown by his cousin in 2023 and then placed under house arrest. The BBC's Paul Linger has more.
The release of the Bongo family followed immense pressure from the African Union. Angola's president, João Lourenço, who also serves as current chairman of the African Union, visited Libreville, where he held talks with Gabon's newly elected president Oligui Nguema. The Angolan presidency said the release and subsequent relocation of the once powerful presidential family to Luanda was thanks to efforts by the leaders of both countries. But it remains unclear whether the trial of the former First Lady and her son, accused of embezzlement and money laundering, will continue.
Top story. President Ramaphosa has filed papers in the High Court in Pretoria seeking leave to appeal the court's ruling, which found that his decision to sign the National Health Insurance Act is reviewable and subsequently gave him 10 days to furnish the record of that decision. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Goes.
In your sports this hour, Ellis leaves no stone unturned as WAFCON approaches. Eben's quick recovery boosts Sharks, and Simbini eyes Lions showdown as Wade returns in Atlanta. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in Houghton Estate is queuing towards Houghton Drive exit. The N12 eastbound in Bedfordview has an incident reported after Giluli's interchange, and Main Reef Road in Crown has a crash near Press Avenue. In KZN, the M7 St John's Avenue queuing through central Pinetown, and the N2 a crash reported between Prospection Road and Joyner Road exit, and there's queuing traffic in both directions. And the R103 southbound queuing towards Howick Road due to motorists diverting from the N3 highway closure. In Cape Town, the R304 northbound in Stellenbosch queuing towards Port Lorraine Road, Spine Road northbound in Khayelitsha has heavy traffic towards Old Foro Road, and Muway in Khayelitsha is closed between the N2 highway and Old Foro Road due to community unrest. With your traffic updates, I'm Irma G.
TSG believe if they double their efforts, they will close the curtain with huge smiles. But the Reds are on standby to cheers to an incredible season. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Witness TSG Hoffenheim against Bayern München on Saturday, 17 May at 3 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC 3, and on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Chill Zone with Bertha Charuma.
You just mentioned living in Shanghai.
Yes.
I mean, you've lived in China,
Yes.
in Thailand,
Yes.
in the US. As a teacher.
Yes. Yes.
And now a singer.
So, singer first, then teacher. Because I think, remember, the singing, I grew up with that, right? When I moved abroad, I was really just working on securing the bag, and so that I'd be able to fund my music, because I'm an independent artist. So that's where my love for going abroad came from, because I knew that my opportunities there were much bigger than the opportunities I had in South Africa at the time. I appreciate that.
Ndlovu, Afro soul singer.
Bertha Charuma. Fridays, 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and the vibrant sounds of Africa. Music that moves the soul. This is SAFM. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So every Friday we talk to a person, what we call the fireside chat, which really means we go all over the place. I mean, what typically two people talk about over a fireside chat, I can just about imagine. And today my guest is Haley Reichert, who's South African, been in the UK, I understand, since 2008 or thereabouts, and is currently still based in England. And we're going to chat up to 6 o'clock. It means you can connect with us as well, because I'm sure we're going to raise some issues that will somehow resonate with you, but there's also a good chance that you may know Haley directly. And if that's the case, well, great, give her a shout out and say hi to her as well. So Haley, online we meet. Good to connect with you here on the National Pulse, and thanks for being my fireside chat guest for the next 45, 50 minutes or so.
Thank you so much for having me, inviting me on.
Thank you. I'm looking at the things you do or have done, and often we'll say we'll just put it down into one title, and I must be very blunt and honest with you. I am struggling to decide what I should call you. So I thought what I'll do is I'll leave it to you to give me a one-liner in terms of your all-encompassing title, in terms of what you do.
Oh gosh, a one-liner, that's a bit tough. Really just an extremely passionate South African living abroad who believes that the potential in South Africa far outweighs its problems.
And that's it. And that is that something. Okay, so that's the title in terms of your mission, really, your purpose, right? How then do you play that out in terms of the practicalities of the day-to-day things that you do? Because you do and you have done lots of different things, I know.
So, I mean, this isn't even my day job. So everything that I do in the South African community globally is completely voluntary. I'm actually a UK mortgage and protection advisor, but pretty much every spare minute that I have on a day-to-day basis is engaging with South Africans around the world. And a lot of it is helping change people's perceptions around the country. So in 23 and 24, I did 2 self-funded pre-election trips, Durban, Johannesburg, Pretoria, Cape Town, meeting with different party leaders, politicians, civil society initiatives, going into townships. And I think it's really trying to get the South Africans abroad. No one knows how many there are. I think it's a standard that sort of estimate, a loose estimate, that there's at least 1 million abroad. And that's quite a chunk of people. And it is for me to try and change their perceptions around what's currently happening in the country. And, you know, instead of just everyone sitting back and moaning about the politicians, it's really getting people to understand how civil society needs to work with politicians and not painting them with all the same brush, and getting people to actually understand the value in engaging with them. And I've just taken it upon myself. My ultimate driver is I love South Africa. I miss South Africa. I want to come home. And over more than a decade now of my engagement through all the things that I've done, that seems to resonate with every single, I'd say more than 90% of the South Africans abroad love the country, miss home, and want to see it succeed. But people are frustrated and they just feel, well, I'm just one little individual. What can I possibly do? So my kind of argument to them is, well, you don't have to literally pick fights with MPs like I do, but there is something for everyone. It doesn't matter what your background is. You don't have to be a high-flying, corporate, a CEO of a company. You don't have to be a career politician. It doesn't matter wherever you've come from, whatever your background is, whatever your circumstances are, there is some way, shape or form that you can make a difference in driving change in South Africa. And lots of little bits of action can culminate into quite significant change.
I mean, interesting you say that. So when you moved to the UK, and now in terms of the work that you do or have been doing for the past decade or so, did you move so that you could be closer to the skeptics, or did you move because you moved for whatever reason, and then when you were there you realized, hold it, man, besides my other work and things, I still have a great purpose and need to play up South Africa. And I talk about it, championing your nation. What happened for you?
So I was 22. I was engaged, planning my wedding, found out I was pregnant, was planning my wedding. I seem to have done everything backwards in life. And the goal originally was to get married and come over, do the typical few years work, travel, experience life, and then move back to South Africa and settle down, have a family, build careers, etc. But that didn't happen. So we decided to come over, and I'd been here for a few years. I was still busy studying, doing a psychology degree through UNISA. So 2008, I found out I was pregnant, got married, got my husband's spousal visa was issued, moved to the UK 3 weeks later, which was the end of May 2008, so coming up for 17 years. I was pregnant. I wrote exams with a newborn baby, and fast forward a couple of years after being in the UK, I think because it wasn't a case of come over, dive into work and socializing like most people do when they're young and moving abroad, I did feel very isolated. So once I'd done my degree, I had been in the UK for about 3 years, and I thought, what is my purpose in life? Why am I here? I'm miserable. This isn't what I hoped for. So I went onto Facebook and I thought, well, let's go find some South Africans and make some friends. And I came across a group of people that were holding a protest. And it was the DA abroad at the time. And I thought, I had no interest in politics at all. And I thought, what a great way to go meet a bunch of South Africans. So attended that protest, and I think that was my kind of light bulb moment. And from then on, I got involved with the DA abroad, and I was involved with them for about 7 or 8 years. And it really kind of changed, and I realized in getting involved with the overseas voting, I started the project, the Loss of Citizenship campaign, which we've just 11 years down the line had the Constitutional Court ruling last 2 weeks ago. And it was in that process that I realized I may just be one person, but I can actually drive change. And it was in moving abroad that made me realize how much value there is in South Africa and how much we all have to give into making the country what it can be. So it was a bit of a weird, non-typical kind of way of finding my voice and kind of getting involved in South Africa. It was literally moving abroad to kind of find and ignite that passion.
Well, your very own long walk, isn't it? We all have those, right? What would you then describe South Africa now? I mean, like where you are, you've been asked, give us a one-liner. South Africa means what to you now?
Sure. I'd say South Africa means everything. It is literally everything I do even in my paying job, most of my clients are South Africans. I engage with South Africans from around the world. And I think, it's my long-term goal is to come home, and I can't just sit back, moan and complain and say, oh, it's a pipe dream if and when South Africa ever turns a corner, when someone comes riding in on their stallion to save the country, then, maybe I can think about returning home. Over the past decade, it's everything that I've been involved with has made me realize it is up to every single one of us. And that's why I'm kind of embarking on this journey now of building a civil society army, if you will, and targeting the South Africans abroad specifically, because that's my core network. I can't reach all 60 million in South Africa, but I can certainly try and reach 1 million abroad. And getting people to realize, when I was part of the DA, a lot of people would say, oh, the ANC have messed up, the DA must do something about it. So I'd say, well, are you a member? Do you contribute? Do you make any financial contributions? And most people would turn around and say, no, I don't want to be associated to a party. I'd rather give my money to charity. And I said, well, that's all, that's great that you want to help. But helping charities, the problem is getting bigger. Most charities in South Africa, their donor base is shrinking because of people leaving. And it's completely unsustainable. So if you want to drive real change, you need to get to the core of the problem. And pointing out, saying, well, I have a problem and somebody else must fix it, is completely nonsensical. So for me, it's really getting people to understand how you engage with your politicians, how civil society, ordinary citizens work and in collaboration with other civil society organizations are really operational in South Africa, what does it actually look like on a day-to-day basis? How can people actually go about lobbying for change? We take the citizenship, the loss of citizenship case, for example. It came about back in the lead up to the 2014 election. I noticed how many South Africans were saying to us, there wasn't any online registration back then. You had to physically go to your nearest foreign mission. So many people were emailing us or commenting on social media saying, I went to register to vote, and I've been told I've lost my citizenship because I didn't get this retention later. And I just thought, there's too many people saying this. There's something here. So I went and got hold of Hanif Hoosen, who at the time was the DA Shadow Minister for Home Affairs, read through the Citizenship Act, came across this piece of legislation, the Section 618, and realized that, this is the problem. How do we go about? I had no clue back then. How do you go about changing a piece of legislation? So I lobbied for it to be a DA abroad campaign. We then did some more research, put it forward to the DA's legal team. It went on a back burner because of the 2016 municipal local elections. It was lodged in Gauteng High Court in 2018, and then people were scared to come forward. And I think a lot of people going, with tax implications for the country, and people were, and it took the DA board. I'd resigned from the DA board in 2018, but it took them quite a while to really get people to come forward to say, we have to evidence how many people this is impacted, in order to be able to say, yes, this is worth taking it to court or not. And then it was dismissed in 2021, and they went to the Supreme Court of Appeal in 23, and finally we have the outcome.
Wow.
And I think
it's
the guys...
it's an amazing story in terms of where you are, but I'm also keen about that shift from, single-party politics, as in DA abroad, to other things. And we'll talk about Watershed, which I suppose could be the name of a music group or a life-changing experience. We'll talk about that next.
We plan for vacations, retirement, and even tonight's dinner. But do we plan for our health? It's how we protect our family's future. So who are you staying healthy for? And how can you protect their future? Choose Dis-Chem Life, the life cover that helps you live a healthier, more rewarding life with health checks and extra rewards. Visit dischemlife.co.za now. Dis-Chem Life. Choose a better partner for life. Dis-Chem Life is an authorized FSP 50594, underwritten by Guardrisk Life, a licensed life insurer, FSP 76. T's and C's apply.
The Blue Diamonds are craving for 3 points, but Amatax believe in their football intelligence to triumph. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. It's more than just 90 minutes. Catch the joy of Mzansi's women's football. JVW Ladies FC versus the University of Pretoria Ladies FC. The Saturday 17 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Welcome to the SABC TV License Loyalty Program, where your payment isn't just about paying fees. It's about joining a vibrant community of connected viewers. Ready for the journey? Here's your roadmap. Sign up at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za and unlock an instant reward. You'll get an SMS to confirm your registration. Make a 50% or 100% payment to your account for a payment confirmation SMS and a promotional code. Explore our partners' product catalogs for an array of offerings. Receive an SMS voucher for your favorite outlet as the icing on the cake. Don't wait. Dive into a world of benefits. Register now at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments. They make a difference.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, Friday Fireside Chat with Hayley Reichert, who's the founder of Operation Watershed. By the way, if you know the work of Hayley, you may want to connect with her live. You can certainly call in, or you can send us a WhatsApp, text, voice note message, or you can also tweet it out as well. I mean, all those options are available to you. Love to engage with you anyway, particularly if you actually know of Hayley and the work that she does, right? So let's talk about Watershed then, Hayley. Tell me about that.
So over the last 5 years, from COVID, basically, when Ramaphosa closed to South African airspace, we had thousands stranded around the world, to getting South Africans out of Ukraine, to helping our students in Russia, where there was an issue with their payments over their tuition and accommodation and things. I've just kind of been on this journey with connecting with other political party leaders, MPs, and I just kind of realized that if I wear one party cap, it cuts me off from speaking to everybody. And I've just realized the power in the civil voice. So just everything that's happened in the last sort of 5 years really has kind of brought me to this point in the last sort of 12, 18 months, realizing that I can reach out to any MP from any party. And it's getting people to understand, especially with the smaller parties, their resources are limited. They have to focus on the areas that they can have the biggest impact. So whilst issues might be important to them as individuals, from a party perspective, they may not be able to pick up the cause. So if I can't go to one party, which other party can I go to drive change, whether it's at legislative, governmental level? So it's really just kind of, I feel like I can have far more impact and reach far more people and get more people to be active citizens by going the civil society route.
Okay, point taken. So, and I think maybe a wise decision anyway. What then are your thoughts about South Africa right now, both internally and, of course, the goings-on between South Africa and the USA?
I didn't think we'd escape that question today. So I think I'm hoping that South Africans have realized that change is possible, and it might be scary, and we see the dynamics between the parties and even the parties within the GNU and parties that aren't part of the GNU. There's always going to be this mudslinging and kind of one-upmanship between the parties, because that's just the nature of the beast with trying to get people to support their parties, to vote for them, to fund them, etc. So that's just part and parcel, and I think we can't allow, South Africans should never allow themselves to be distracted by the messiness, the noise, the chaos. I think the fact that we have this GNU as difficult as a path as it is, everyone involved in driving that GNU and holding it together, and I certainly don't wish to be in any of their shoes in trying to do that over the next, sort of 4 years at least. But change is possible. And I think it's really important that all South Africans understand the value of their vote. I know we have lots of people aboard saying, my vote isn't going to be counted. It's not going to get back, to South Africa. That's why I was an observer in this election. I left South Africa House at 2:00 on the Monday morning, watching the counting of all those envelopes, making sure that they were all accounted for. So I think we are in... I don't think that I think it's a really positive thing. I think it's a net positive with the shift that is happening across the country. And in terms of America, I think I have to be careful of what I say here. It's really, really frustrating to see the lengths that individuals will go to perpetuate we're trying to get away from the racial issues. We're trying to build bridges, and I think it's really frustrating to see what's playing out with the so-called refugees. And I think it's a real kick in the face to millions of people around the world who are genuine refugees, who are fleeing for their lives. I was involved in helping get South Africans out of Ukraine. I engaged with a lot of people fleeing. We had South Africans in towns and cities where there was bombing overhead, and just kind of getting that tiny glimpse of what that is like, what it is actually like fleeing a war, as opposed to a country that has a crime problem. And I'm not, I don't want to take away from, because I do know people where they have been victims of farm attacks and gone through horrific and horrendous crimes. And I don't want to take away from that, but I do think there needs to be balance in, we have a crime problem. And yes, we do have a lot of white Afrikaans farmers, and it is rural and they are easy targets. So yes, there is an issue with it, but I do think it needs to be seen in light of crime in general in the country, rather than being targeted specifically.
And therefore your point about so-called refugees is noted, right? Let's talk about your early days. I mean, where in South Africa are you from? And is there anything, when you reflect on it, that fired you up to a position that has got you to doing things now? Sometimes we don't quite realize what the triggers were. So reflect on that.
So I'd always been service oriented. When I was in high school, I was at so I come from Durban. I'm from Upper Highway area in Durban. I went to St. Mary's DSG in Kloof, and I was part of the Interact committee, which is school level of Rotary International. So being involved with charitable initiatives has been something that's been part of my life from a young age. And I think, I grew up, I was born in 85, so, kind of in my late childhood into my teens was, I was part of that sort of transition in South Africa. And I remember, simple, small things like questioning as I went through primary school. I went to an ex-Model C school, and more black students coming in below me. And it was, I didn't understand the concept with apartheid and the sort of macro political scheme of things in South Africa being a child. And then going through my high school career, and it's, it was post-apartheid, and I did history. I loved history, but I also kind of felt like we had this, the ills of apartheid, almost like it felt like at the time being shoved down our throat. Now, I completely understand from teachers' perspectives that drive to change perceptions with us as young people so that we don't carry on certain ways of thinking. But it was almost frustrating. And I think it was only when I came over to the UK and I actually engaged with the diaspora, with a lot of Black South Africans here, that I really understood it. And I remember having conversations with people about their upbringings, their experiences of the police force during apartheid and things like that, where it really started to make sense. And I think something for me in my childhood that really stood out was my mother's relationship. We had a obviously I grew up with the term calling him a garden boy, and obviously, wouldn't be applicable now, but that's what I grew up with. And he was the same age as my mom. And, and I actually carry a lot of guilt because I didn't stand up to my mother the way that she treated him. She spoke down to him. She treated him like a second-rate citizen. And I remember very distinctly there was a separate plate, cutlery, cup, and one day she absolutely screamed at me because I was washing his dishes in the same water that I was washing our dishes, and she went off on an absolute tangent, and it's just something that's really stuck with me, and I really regret not standing up for him then. And there's a huge part of me over the years, I often think of him and I actually wish I could try and track him down and just to say face to face, like, I'm sorry for how my mom treated you, and I'm sorry that I didn't stand up when I knew that I could have stood up. Well, and I think that's just something that's really kind of sat with me for the last, 2.5 decades.
Well, I'll tell you what you've just said, it's a conversation maybe for a broader conversation for another time, but it just shows you just how much away from, what happens at government level like the TRC, but what happens on a very personal human to human basis, or what didn't happen and what went right and wrong is the type of conversations we need to be having about all of us living with racism and living in a state of racism, because that's really what apartheid South Africa really was. So maybe something to consider down the line. But let's just pause for the moment. I'm going to get you. You can take your breath now because we have a few minutes. We need to get to sport just now. We're going to get to the markets. But first things first, let's get to the news with Greg Host.
Quick look at the headlines of this half hour. The National Director of Public Prosecution says she will not step down from her position. The President has filed papers in the High Court seeking leave to appeal the court's ruling, which found that his decision to sign the NHI Act is reviewable and subsequently gave him 10 days to finish the record of the decision. And the World Health Organization's declared a polio outbreak in Papua New Guinea. There's a full update at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 northbound in Pretoria queuing towards Garsfontein Road. The N3 southbound in Germiston is queuing towards Geldness Interchange. And the M1 northbound in Amonde has a crash before Xavier Street. In KZN, the N2 northbound queuing towards the M25 Commercial Highway. The M4 has a crash reported near Virginia Airport, queuing traffic both ways. And on the N2, a crash reported between Prospection Road and Joyner Road exit, queuing traffic in both ways. In Cape Town, Muway is closed between the N2 Highway and Old Fora Road due to community unrest. Brackenfell Boulevard northbound is slow-moving at the N1 Highway, and Old Fora Road eastbound is closed between Muway and Spine Road due to community unrest in the area. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
All right, Tumi, lots to talk about as we get to a sporting weekend once again. What do you want to pick up on?
Well, Banyana coach Desiree Ellis says that they will do everything possible to give themselves enough chance to defend the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. Ellis named a 24-player squad named for the upcoming international window against Zambia and Botswana in the upcoming window as they prepare for the WAFCON in Morocco from the 5th to the 26th of July.
I don't think it's easy to win it, but it's more difficult to defend it, and we know that. But we have to give ourselves every chance because the only country that has done it back to back has been Nigeria. They've already been history makers in winning it. Can you imagine what it will do for our football if we can go and defend that title? And we have to give ourselves every chance that we can. And that's why we're looking at players that are doing well, because we know some players that have not been called up, we know what they can do. But we also need to see what these ones can do. We had a long season, and because of that, we wanted to give a rest, just to make sure that we also take care of players. It was very, very important that we do that. You know, we had a camp for the last WAFCON. International players came in later because they had just finished, to make sure that they go back, spend time with their families, and very important, come back refreshed again. With Rafiel Vejani, I had a conversation with her with the last camp. Having been out for a while, having come back, I was really excited to see her back. She's had some more game time. We'll only see when we get to camp because the level, as I said, is completely different. But the professional that she is, she knows what's expected at an international.
Elsewhere, Kevin De Bruyne can add another honour to his haul as Manchester City's most decorated player of all time with a fitting farewell in tomorrow's FA Cup final against Crystal Palace. De Bruyne will come to an end of his contract at the conclusion of the Premier League season with City. He could add a third FA Cup to his 5 League Cups and 2023 Champions League win with City. In athletics, Lakani Simbini will take part in the Adidas Atlanta City Games tomorrow. Simbini has been in red hot form, earning a bronze medal at the 60-meter indoor world championships in China in March in his first ever campaign in that arena. The other South African taking part at the Atlanta City Games will be 400-meter world record holder Wade van Niekerk. The 32-year-old was scheduled to participate at the national champs in Potchefstroom but withdrew following the birth of his second son. In rugby, Eben Elizabeth has been past fit for the Sharks Vodacom URC match against Scarlets at Kings Park tomorrow. He limped off the field during last week's 2019 win against the Ospreys, but has recovered quickly from what turned out to be a leg knock rather than a knee injury to retain his place in the starting 15 as well as the captaincy. In motorsport, Oscar Piastri led McLaren 1-2 in practice 1 of the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix ahead of Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz. Before I leave, Ashraf, I do understand that we do have some voice notes with regards to the
ticketing issue. Yeah, right. So let's play them.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'm Swedo in Guatemala. Black people of South Africa shouldn't be crybabies. When you like something so much, you pay for it because you value it. People are paying 30,000 and 40,000 rands for iPhones. When there's Chris Brown in the country, they are prepared to pay for him 10,000 rand. What about Springboks? Why are not they prepared to pay for Springbok? Springbok is the best rugby team in the world, for God's sake. Black people should not cry racism even where it doesn't belong. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, SAFM listeners. Marumo Mahike. I salute, and I'll always do salute the EFF MP member for taking that decision. I salute him. But coming to this thing, Ashraf, of rich people with the ticket of rugby ticket being expensive, so and the other people can't afford it. Ashraf, we cannot hold the rich people ransom because we can't afford tickets. If somebody has got money, can go and buy the ticket and go to the stadium. It's all I can say. I stand to be corrected. But if somebody's got money to buy the ticket and go to the stadium, so be it. If you don't have money, stay home. That's it.
Now for me, I think I'm asking myself a big question about, is enough being done for the ordinary South African? And I'm saying this based on the fact that I feel like this whole ticketing system and it being expensive has somehow gone to the extent of it dividing us, when this was the very sport that was trying to bring us together, that actually brought everyone together in the country. Why can we not think about the ordinary South Africans?
So what's the solution then?
I feel like more needs to be done to try to accommodate also the ordinary South African.
Yeah, but what's that solution? Because if
In
the
terms
SA
of
Rugby
the
doesn't
ticket
get
price-
income, then they can't pay the players the monies that they pay them to retain them, because they can get taken by other clubs, as you know, around the world. So how do you
Yes.
retain them and retain the core of the team so you can continue winning World Cups, which is what they do?
Yeah, that's the question to ask.
That's the $1 million question. If you can get those economies of scale right, then I want
Of
to know
course.
about it. It's never that simple.
It's never that simple. But yeah, I do understand the calls for these tickets to be more affordable for more South Africans, even though they are trying to bring in that money. But with that said,
Okay. Right, have a great weekend.
Join us this Tuesday evening at 7:30 for the latest series of SAFTA award-winning reality show, The Tastemaster SA.
Today's theme is all about bread. I love making bread. I am shaking my boots. What a page. We got this, we got this. Oh, that didn't sound convincing. I'm feeling a little stressed. I'm not going to mess this one up.
That's The Tastemaster SA. Tuesdays at 7:30, repeats Sundays at 4. Only on SABC2.
TSG believe if they double their efforts, they will close the curtain with huge smiles. But the Reds are on standby to cheers to an incredible season. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Witness TSG Hoffenheim against Bayern München on Saturday, 17 May at 3 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC 3, and on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Every person, no matter who you are, what music you're inclined to listen to, and what you do with your weekends, you need a weekend playlist. It's that musical mix of music that accompanies the lazy weekends, whether catching up with friends and family or just taking some time to reflect. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 on SAFM.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Okay, we don't have a market show from 6 to 7 today, but it certainly means that this report on the state of the markets is the last you're going to get for the week. So it's important, or for the day and the week. Jimmy, what's on the show?
To the listeners, it's certainly an interesting close to the week. Very few weeks have left me this excited going into a new week. There's been quite a strong recovery in terms of the rand against all of the major currencies. Let's do a quick summary of all the other markets, and we'll come back to the rand. It's been a bit of a mixed bag on the equities front, with international markets finishing mostly in the red. Asian markets, the only Asian market that was in the green was the Sydney ASX. That was up 0.5%. Shanghai and Hong Kong were both down 0.4%. The Nikkei was flat. European markets also slightly mixed. The DAX only marginally in the red, but the CAC 40 in France up 0.1%, the FTSE in London up 0.45%. The Nasdaq at the moment is around flat to marginally in the red. The S&P slightly in the green, about 5 basis points there. The local front, resources were down about 1%, but that was offset by the 0.3% gains in financial stocks and the nearly 1% gains in industrial stocks. As a result, all share closed out the day 0.3% in the green, and the top 40 was up 0.33%. In terms of commodities, the gold price continuing to give off a bit as risk kind of returns to markets, and markets investors kind of move out of gold for the time being, but still above $3,000 a fine ounce, $3,180 odd a fine ounce there. Brent crude's $65 a barrel, holding quite steady there. Platinum and palladium still below $1,000, but platinum the closest to 1,000 at $985. And in terms of those currencies, as I said, the rand surprising the market today, coming down and testing even below the 18 rand level. So I think we saw 17.98, so just below that 18 rand level. Of course, we at one stage when the tariffs broke out were closer to 20 rand, so very good moves on the rand side of it. One British pound came down to about 23.99. It's at about 24 rand and 1 cent at the moment. 1 euro, 20 rand 18 cents. 1 Australian dollar, 11 rand 57. Bitcoin, $104,000 a coin. Ethereum price around 2,590. Next week is, of course, the big week. We've had 2 of these big weeks before this year already, so unprecedented third big week of the year when we have the budget speech to be tabled by the Minister of Finance, and I suppose markets are also looking keenly towards that to see how things are adjusted, what the government then says, where the revenues are going to come from, how the balance sheet is going to be managed from a state perspective. So that's going to keep me busy, obviously, going into next week, keeping an eye on all of the market sentiment around that. And I think that's going to be where investors are also going to be looking. So we're going to be delving into the budgets next week in greater detail as we get that budget speech. But we take the win going into the weekend. The rand coming below 18 rand for the first time in a very long time is enough cause for celebration, and is enough cause for me to lock up everything, put the market and the charts away for the weekend, and look forward to next week.
Okay, and your time's up, so we will connect on Monday, that budget week Monday. So significant indeed. Thanks for that, Jimmy. Have a fabulous weekend. It means we continue now with the fireside chat with Haley Reichert right after this.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So, Haley, you've done lots of things in your life, and I mean, I just want to pick up on this in terms of what you said. You're involved in what? UK mortgages and somehow assisting South Africans too. Tell me more about that.
So I fell into that by meeting another fellow South African who's now my boss. Turned out he lived at the time about 5-10 minutes away from me, and he was looking to get involved in the South African community with the Chamber of Commerce and the UK-based Nedbank South African Charity Golf Day that I was part of the organising committee for about 6 years. And I walked out of that coffee with him saying, "Why don't you come and work for me?" So, and then fast forward 6 months and COVID hit, and it was 6 months of getting an hour's sleep a night, dealing with South African stranded around the world. And then after that, he said, "Well, you've picked this up really quickly. Why don't you become a mortgage advisor?" And he said, you've got 12 months to do this course, but you're going to do it in 6 months. So I just come off of 6 months of absolutely no sleep, straight into 6 months of studying, and became an advisor. And so I've been with the company for 6 years now. And the majority of my clients are South Africans based in the UK, wanting to get onto the property ladder here. And we also do personal protection, business protection, so life insurance, critical illness, things like that.
And how do you respond to, again, whether it's South Africans in the UK or others like myself connecting with you? It's like, hold it, the fact that you're there and somebody wants to buy property in London, you may assist them, that in fact the actions are unpatriotic. I mean, I'm sure you've heard that 50 times. What's your stock response?
Sorry, say that again.
I was saying if you're assisting South Africans from, sort of who live in London or UK and to establish themselves in that region, some may say, well, in reality, you're being unpatriotic. Why don't you convince them to come back home or to stick around where they are in South Africa?
I think this is something that I really want to try and challenge the perception of South Africans in South Africa on, because just because we've left doesn't make us any less patriotic. People leave for a variety of reasons. Yes, some people have had really traumatic experiences. They've been victims of crime, and that's driven them to leave, or perhaps from an economic perspective, not being able to get jobs. But there's a lot of people that have moved abroad because they're working for one of the big four, for example. They work in financial services, they're on consignment, and then they decide to stay. So there's so many different reasons. We had so many people, and I didn't realize how many people we had working on ships, especially young people working on cruise ships around the world, people working in America, at country clubs and things like that, guys teaching in Asia. So I think there's this, I get really frustrated with South Africans back home who do have this perception that those of us who've left have abandoned the country, that we should be forced to give up our citizenship, that we shouldn't be allowed to vote. And the more people I speak to, the more people abroad I'm finding who have companies and they employ South Africans in South Africa, the more people I'm finding who run charities. I was at the initial London event last week, Friday evening, for the Lekker Network. So I've just joined as a premium member, and it is a network of South Africans around the world helping each other, mostly through business. But whilst I was there and I got chatting, and there's a chap who helps importing secondhand school equipment, mostly sporting equipment, from Ireland. And the more that I'm engaging with the South Africans abroad, the more I'm realizing there's this strong desire to give back. There's a strong desire to help in any way possible. And at that event, I was introduced to Bruce Whitfield, who many South Africans will know, and he gave me a copy of his book, The One Thing. So going from the sort of macro national level of politics, you're looking at, the things I've been involved with the, disaster, South Africans stranded around the world, getting people out of Ukraine, and all of those types of things. But at the end of the day, it comes down to literally, what one thing can I do? So I haven't started reading this book yet. I'm really excited to read it. But it's trying to get people, it doesn't matter where in the world you go, where life takes you, what is the one thing that every single one of us can do, whether we're in South Africa, whether we're abroad, whether it's abroad long term, abroad short term, it really doesn't matter. But what one thing can every single South African do? And that is my whole driver coming back to Operation Watershed, is really to get people to understand every single one of us can help make the country what we want it to be.
Well, I'll tell you what, I had the privilege of interviewing Bruce about that book a few months ago, so that is available as a podcast. You can Google it or go to the SAFM website, but maybe I'll share it as well sometime tonight or tomorrow morning. And the other thing, Hayley, you appreciate it, is that when you go through the chapters, you'll find a contribution from someone called Ashraf Garda. So I'm in that book, and I think we're all in sync about the same things to try and build South Africa into something much better than what it really is right now, right? Which puts me on to another thing. I will certainly ask you, you mentioned purpose and what you think is the personal purpose of you and the national purpose. I'll do that after this.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Reigning champions Bafana Style are in a jubilant mood closer to the end of the season. They are enjoying every moment on the summit, but Magesi FC have an agenda to cause an upset. This is the Betway Premiership. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game, Mamelodi Sundowns FC versus Magesi FC on Sunday 18 May, streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC 1 at 4:30 p.m. Also available on SABC radio stations at 5:30 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Do you want an experience of a lifetime? Where every day is filled with challenges of providing Lisa Vanderpump curated experiences while dealing with rivalries, romances, and misadventures. It's drama at Vanderpump's French Estate. Chantel Rosabelle and the staff can't wait to give you a front row seat to all the drama. Catch Vanderpump Villa, Saturdays on S3 at 8:30 p.m. S3 open up. S3.
These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. The Weekend View with Bongiwe Zwane. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomotso KG Mweketsi. The Soundtrack of Your Life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Sundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Spotlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Kherika. Shifting Your Lens with Bertha Charuma. This is SAFM. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, a few more minutes with Haile Reichert, the founder of Operation Watershed, really connecting South Africans to the world and the world to South Africa, no matter where they may be. It's quite fascinating talking to her about all of that. What do you? Okay, just to pick up on the one thing, Haile. By the way, so you've got the book with you, but assuming that you had the choice of selecting 4 people to sit around a table, a seat at the table to try and solve South Africa's biggest problems. I don't need the answers what the problems are, but who would you choose?
Sure. Gosh, that's a lot of people to try and fizzle out and try and come down to 4. I think, gosh, are we talking people that are still alive and well?
I would think so. It's a lot more practical.
Okay,
Yeah.
just checking. So I think looking at, I would probably want to have Thuli Madonsela, and I think Lindiwe Mazibuko would also be an interesting person to have a conversation around. I know she's doing a lot of work across Africa with training young politicians and also driving more women in politics. And then I have met Songezo. I was with him in Pretoria last year. So I think Songezo Zibi, I think now that he's in Parliament, he's chair of Scopa. I think it's such a critical role. And I think, interesting story where he's kind of almost seemingly come out of nowhere, had a 1-year-old party and done fairly well considering it's only a 1-year-old party. So I think, and the conversation that I had with him a year ago, I think there's a lot of questions, a lot of insight that I think he can bring to the table. And a 4th person, I'm a bit torn actually. I probably have to, and some people might shoot me down for this, but I'd probably have to say Helen Zille, because I don't always agree with everything that she says or does, but I think she is in an extremely difficult position trying to steer the opposition, the main opposition party, and obviously now being part of GNU, but I think she has that historical knowledge. She's been in the ring so many times with so many different politicians over the years. So I think she has a really good understanding.
Right,
of a lot of
key characters. You're gonna have a busy time with all of them, right? You've got the one book in your hand. Is there another book you'd recommend that we should be reading?
I've got a whole bunch behind me, but I haven't read all of them. They're mostly South African books. So I think a book that I haven't yet read, which I picked up on my way out, leaving South Africa last year, was Better Choices, Ensuring South Africa's Future, which I've actually got it here. So it's Greg Mills, Nsibisi Jonas, Haroon Borat, and Ray Hartley. And then it looks like it might be a bit of a heavy read. And then another book, which I read on the plane on my way home last year, was Saving South Africa with Chris Pappas and Sandile Mnakati. It's a really easy, quick read. And I think especially picking up this book over the coming months into next year as we head into local elections to really give insight into the on-the-ground lower level of government and why it's so important to engage.
I'll tell you what, you sound very much like South Africa's ambassador to the UK. You're so connected to South Africa, all the things that you do, including your choice of reading, right? Is there a young, and I really focus on a young South African that you'd like to give a shout out to? Because I always use this opportunity of you effectively amplifying who they are. So have you got a name?
I'd probably go for two. So Phumlani Majosi is political analyst. I met him and I do have his book on the shelf behind me. I haven't started reading it yet. And then also Ayanda Ali, who is in Gauteng Provincial Legislature with Build One South Africa. I was in Soweto with her last year, and I just a lot of the South Africans, especially those abroad, so following last year's State of the Nation address, it was a TV show and she absolutely lambasted the president, and that video clip of her just went absolutely viral. And I know so many South Africans abroad were like, who is this young girl? Like, she's the kind of person we want in leadership. And then I was fortunate to spend a couple of hours with her in Soweto, and I think she's really on the ball. If you follow her on her Instagram, she posts very regularly. She's really kind of on the grassroots ground level of politics in Gauteng, and I think she's certainly somebody to watch.
And of course, I've known her for many years, and she first emerged as a TV presenter here at the SABC, and that's what she did. And of course, she's evolved into so many other things as well, right? What about, and we've got about 2 minutes to go, so I'll be very quick about this one. You mentioned your purpose. I mean, just quick one. What is your purpose?
I think it's building bridges. When I first got involved with the South African community here, I noticed that there was a black community and a white community here in the UK. And as we've kind of, put events together, there's the diaspora, and they've organised some events. So we initially started organising the London Heritage Day event, usually at Brian, Wimbledon Park. And then it was initially DA Abroad people, and then it got taken over by the diaspora. And now it's one of a women's group within the diaspora. And something crazy, which was, I was chatting to everybody, and I suddenly stood back at one of those braais, and there was it's in a park, grassy area, and a walkway down the middle, and there was literally white people on one side and black people on the other. And I was just like, this it's the 21st century and we're in England and this is still happening. Like, this is ridiculous. So I think, part of my role and why I'm going into townships, and, people abroad think you're crazy. You drove into Mitchell's Plain by yourself. You go into Soweto, and I'm going, but we shouldn't be thinking like that. We should be able to go anywhere in South Africa. And I say to people, you've probably got more chance of being hijacked in Sandton. And I'm not silly, I'm going in to meet people that I know, etc. And I'm not going to put myself in danger on purpose. But I think we have to change narratives. So for me, it is really about building connection and greater understanding and empathy for each other in order to help change those perceptions to drive and change across the board.
And therefore, here's the last thing. You said lots of things. If you had the choice of just one question that you could put to the President Ramaphosa, just one quick question, what would that be?
Sure. When are you resigning?
He may not give you an answer tonight. I've got to go meet Donald Trump first. Yeah. Listen, it's been wonderful talking to you. Lots to reflect on what you've said and what you didn't say and imply. But I think we can all learn from each other talking to you. And therefore, it's been certainly a great privilege to talk to you on the show as part of the Fireside Chat. And all I can tell you now, as we say goodbye to you, Hayley, is like the challenge for all of us is like, come on, hey, let's build bridges, and you know that.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
There we are. Let's build bridges indeed. We'll do it again next week with the Fireside Chat, but the show itself, the National Pulse, happens Monday, 3 to 6. Do not forget that. Have a magic weekend. Let's get the news now. It's 6 o'clock.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Enjoy your weekend ahead. Batoy hits back at resignation calls and Ramaphosa seeks leave to appeal over NHI ruling. Good evening. The National Director of Public Prosecution